3 months. That's all Sophia Sterling had left before she lost everything, not just the billion-dollar fortune, but the foundation that fed thousands of families across New York. All because of one ridiculous clause in her grandfather's will: marry by 31 or watch it all burn. She'd built her entire identity around that foundation, and now some archaic requirement was about to rip it away. Then she met him, a construction worker with calloused hands, a dying daughter, and absolutely nothing to lose. Her solution was desperate. His anger was justified. But when his 6-year-old looked up at her during the wedding and whispered, "Are you really going to be my mommy now?" everything changed. This is their story. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this reaches, and stick around until the end. The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor of Sophia Sterling's penthouse, sending crystal shards skittering across the room like tiny diamonds. She didn't flinch, didn't bend down to clean it up, just stared at the legal document in her other hand, the words blurring together as her hands trembled. 3 months, she whispered to the empty apartment. 3 goddamn months. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan stretched out beneath her like a kingdom she was about to lose. 30 floors below, people hurried through their lives, completely unaware that the woman who ran the Sterling Foundation, the foundation that had provided housing for over 2,000 homeless families last year alone, was currently having a breakdown in a $12 million apartment. Sophia walked to the window, pressing her forehead against the cold glass. Her reflection stared back at her. Perfectly styled dark hair, designer dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent, makeup applied with surgical precision. She looked like success, like power, like someone who had it all figured out. She looked like a complete fraud. Her phone buzzed. Another message from her attorney, Richard Chen. She'd been ignoring his calls for 2 days now, ever since he delivered the news that had turned her world upside down. "We need to discuss options. Call me." Options. What a joke. There were no options. Her grandfather's will was ironclad. She'd had 5 different law firms review it. Marry before her 31st birthday, or the entire Sterling fortune, including control of the foundation, would pass to her cousin Vincent. Vincent, who'd told her at last year's Christmas party that homeless people were basically just lazy, and that the foundation was a waste of perfectly good money. Vincent, who would dismantle everything she'd spent the last 8 years building. Sophia grabbed her laptop and opened it for the 100th time, staring at the clause that was ruining her life. The heir must be married and remain so for a minimum period of 2 years to maintain control of the Sterling estate and associated charitable entities. Failure to meet this requirement will result in immediate transfer of all assets to the next eligible heir. 2 years. She didn't just need a wedding, she needed a marriage that lasted. Her grandfather had thought of everything, the controlling bastard. Even from the grave, he was trying to dictate her life. She'd tried everything. Contacted old boyfriends, the few who'd tolerated her impossible schedule and emotional unavailability, only to find they'd all moved on. One was married. One had relocated to Singapore. The third had laughed and asked if she was joking. "I could pay someone," she'd said to Richard during their last meeting, only half joking. "That would constitute fraud," he'd replied, his expression carefully neutral. "If Vincent could prove the marriage was a sham, you'd lose everything anyway. The marriage has to be legally binding and appear legitimate." Appear legitimate. As if any marriage she entered into with a 3-month deadline could be anything but a transaction. Her phone rang again. This time, she answered. "I'm not in the mood, Richard." "Good, because neither am I." His voice was clipped, professional. "I'm outside, let me up. It's 11 at night. And you're running out of time. Buzz me in, Sophia." 5 minutes later, Richard Chen sat across from her, his briefcase open, looking like he'd aged a decade in the past week. He'd been her grandfather's attorney before becoming hers, and she knew he took the foundation's fate as seriously as she did. "I have an idea," he said without preamble. "You're not going to like it." "I don't like any of this." "Fair point." He pulled out a folder. "We need to shift our thinking. You've been approaching this as if you need to find someone willing to marry you. That's the wrong angle." "Enlightening. Please continue." Richard ignored her sarcasm. "What you need is someone who needs you just as badly as you need them. Someone with a problem only you can solve. That makes it a transaction, yes, but a mutually beneficial one. Less fraud, more strategic partnership." Sophia felt something cold settle in her stomach. You want me to find someone desperate. I want you to find someone motivated. He opened the folder. I took the liberty of doing some research. There are several candidates who might... Stop. Sophia held up her hand. You made a list? Of potential husbands? Like I'm shopping for a car. Would you prefer to lose the foundation? The words hit her like a slap. She slumped back in her chair, suddenly exhausted. No, I wouldn't. Then look at the list. She took the folder with shaking hands. Inside were dossiers, actual dossiers on 5 men. Names, photos, financial situations, personal histories. It felt invasive and desperate and completely insane, and it was her only option. These men all have significant financial difficulties, Richard explained. Medical bills, business debts, family obligations. They're not criminals or opportunists, just people who've been dealt bad hands. Any one of them might consider a business arrangement in exchange for financial relief. Sophia flipped through the pages, feeling sicker with each one. A schoolteacher drowning in student loans, a veteran trying to save his family farm, a single father whose construction business was... She stopped. The photo showed a man in his early 30s, dark hair, serious eyes. He wasn't smiling. Something about his expression made her pause. He looked tired but not defeated, worn down but still fighting. Daniel Hayes, age 32, owner of Hayes & Sons Construction, single father to Chloe Hayes, age 6, currently 3 months behind on business loan payments and facing bankruptcy, daughter undergoing treatment for congenital heart defect at Mount Sinai Hospital. Sophia stared at the little girl's photo. Chloe had curly brown hair and her father's serious eyes, but she was smiling in the picture, holding what looked like a stuffed elephant. This one, Sophia said quietly. Tell me about this one. Richard nodded as if he'd expected this. Daniel Hayes took over his father's construction company 5 years ago. By all accounts, he's good at what he does. Honest, hardworking, reliable. But his daughter's medical expenses have destroyed him financially. She needs surgery within the next 6 months. Without it, he trailed off, the implication clear. How much does he need? For the surgery and to save his business? About $300,000. $300,000. Sophia spent more than that on art. She could write that check without blinking. Here's the thing, Richard continued. He's proud. Refused charity from several organizations, including one of the foundation's partner programs. He wants to solve his own problems. Then why would he accept this? Because it's not charity. It's a contract. A job, essentially. And because Richard met her eyes. Because he's running out of time, just like you are. Sophia closed the folder. Her hands were still shaking. This is insane. Yes. I don't even know him. No. He could be horrible, abusive, unstable. I had him thoroughly vetted. He's none of those things. By all accounts, he's a decent man in an impossible situation. And his daughter. Sophia's voice cracked slightly. She's 6 years old, Richard. 6. What happens to her when this arrangement ends in 2 years? When I just leave? That's between you and Mr. Hayes to determine. My job is to save the foundation. Your job is to decide if you're willing to do what it takes. Sophia stood and walked back to the window. Below, the city glittered, indifferent to her crisis. Somewhere down there, Daniel Hayes was probably lying awake, worrying about his daughter, about money, about time running out, just like her. Set up a meeting, she said finally. Somewhere private. I'll talk to him. Sophia, I know. She turned to face him. This is crazy. It's desperate and manipulative and possibly the worst idea I've ever had. But that foundation feeds families, Richard. It houses children. It saves lives. So yes, I'll talk to him. I'll make him an offer. And if he says no, she swallowed hard. Then at least I tried everything. Richard gathered his papers. I'll call him tomorrow. Make it clear this is just a conversation. I'm not trying to ambush the man. Of course. He paused at the door. For what it's worth, I think your grandfather would be proud of you. You're fighting for something bigger than yourself. My grandfather, Sophia said bitterly, is the reason I'm in this mess. He's the one who put that ridiculous clause in his will. He wanted you to have a family, someone to share your life with. He wanted to control me, even after death. There's a difference. After Richard left, Sophia poured herself a glass of wine and sat in the dark, staring at Daniel Hayes' photo. She'd built her entire adult life around maintaining emotional distance. It was safer that way, less painful. Her parents had taught her that love was conditional, that affection was currency, that everything, including family, was ultimately a transaction. Now she was about to prove them right. She picked up her phone and pulled up the Foundation's latest impact report. Last quarter alone, they'd provided 15,000 meals to food-insecure families, placed 487 people in permanent housing, funded medical care for 234 uninsured children like Chloe Hayes. Sophia closed her eyes. She could do this. She could approach Daniel Hayes with a business proposal, convince him to marry her, maintain the charade for 2 years, and then walk away. Clean, simple, transactional. She could do this without getting attached. She could definitely do this without falling in love. 3 days later, Sophia sat in a private room at an anonymous coffee shop in Brooklyn, her stomach churning with anxiety. She'd chosen this location deliberately, neutral territory, far from her usual Manhattan haunts. The last thing she needed was Page 6 getting wind of this meeting. The door opened. Daniel Hayes walked in, and Sophia's first thought was that his photo didn't do him justice. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing jeans and a worn canvas jacket that had clearly seen better days. His hands, she noticed, were calloused and scarred. Working hands. Everything about him screamed blue collar, from his scuffed work boots to the wary, exhausted look in his eyes. He looked real in a way that most people in her world didn't. "Ms. Sterling." His voice was rough, guarded. He didn't offer his hand. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming." She gestured to the chair across from her. "Please, sit." He remained standing. "Your lawyer said you wanted to discuss a business opportunity. I'll be honest, I almost didn't come. I don't need a sales pitch." "This isn't a sales pitch." "Then what is it?" Sophia took a breath. She'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times, but now that he was here, standing in front of her like a wall of suspicion and barely contained anger, all her carefully prepared words evaporated. "It's a proposal," she said. "A strange one, possibly offensive, definitely unconventional." "I'm listening." "Could you sit?" "Please." After a long moment, he pulled out the chair and sat, but his posture remained defensive. Arms crossed, jaw tight. Everything about his body language said he didn't want to be here. Sophia couldn't blame him. "I need to get married," she began, "before my 31st birthday, 3 months from now." Daniel's expression didn't change. "Congratulations." "You don't understand. I don't have anyone to marry. This isn't about love. It's about an inheritance clause in my grandfather's will. If I'm not married by my birthday, I lose control of my family's foundation. Everything I've built for the past 8 years will go to my cousin, who will immediately dismantle it. That's unfortunate, but I'm not sure why you're telling me this." Here it was, the moment of truth. "Because I'm proposing a contract marriage, 2 years. You would be my husband, legally and publicly. In exchange, I'll pay for your daughter's surgery and clear your business debts. $300,000, transferred immediately upon signing the contract." Daniel's face went completely blank. Then he laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that made Sophia flinch. "You're joking." "I'm not. You want to buy a husband. I want to propose a mutually beneficial arrangement between two people who what?" Daniel stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Who are both desperate enough to treat marriage like a business transaction. Is that what you were going to say?" "Mr. Hayes, do you have any idea how insulting this is?" His voice was rising, controlled fury bleeding through. "You sit there in your designer clothes, in your carefully chosen, relatable coffee shop, and you think you can just, what? Rent a poor person? Buy yourself a ready-made family? That's not what I'm trying to My daughter is sick, not stupid, not a prop for whatever game you're playing with your rich family. She's a real kid who's been through hell, and you think I'd drag her into this? You think I'd marry someone for money and let her believe we're a real family just to... Your daughter will die without that surgery." Sophia's voice cut through his anger like a knife. "I've read her medical files. Without the surgery, she has maybe a year, probably less." The color drained from Daniel's face. "You had no right. I had every right. I'm offering you a solution, and I needed to understand the situation fully before making that offer." Sophia stood, meeting his eyes. You're angry. I understand. This proposal is unconventional and uncomfortable, but your daughter is running out of time, and so am I. So before you storm out of here on principle, maybe consider what you're walking away from. You're talking about my daughter like she's a line item in a budget. No, I'm talking about her like she's the reason you're still standing here instead of leaving. Because we both know you should have walked out the second I mentioned a contract marriage. But you didn't. You're still here. Why? Daniel's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Sophia thought he might actually hit something. Instead, he turned away, staring at the wall. This is wrong, he said quietly. Yes, it's manipulative. Probably. If Chloe found out the truth, she won't. Not from me. Sophia moved closer, careful not to touch him. Mr. Hayes, Daniel, I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I'm trying to save something important. The foundation helps thousands of families every year, families like yours. And yes, I'm desperate enough to propose this arrangement, but I'm not a monster. We would set clear boundaries, clear terms. Your daughter's well-being would be the priority. You don't know anything about her well-being. Then tell me. He turned to face her, and the pain in his eyes nearly broke her resolve. She's 6 years old, and she's already been through 4 surgeries. She knows she's sick. She knows I'm scared, even though I try to hide it. And the worst part, his voice cracked. The worst part is that she tries to take care of me. She tells me it's okay, that she's not scared, that we'll figure it out. What kind of 6-year-old has to comfort their parent? Sophia felt something shift in her chest. The kind who has a father worth comforting. Daniel's jaw worked. He looked away again, and she could see him fighting with himself. Pride versus desperation. Principles versus reality. 2 years, he said finally. That's what you need? To satisfy the terms of the will, yes. And after that? After that, we divorce. Amicably. You'll have full custody of Chloe? I'll arrange a trust fund for her education and medical care. You'll never have to worry about money again. And what do you get, besides your inheritance? Sophia hesitated. The honest answer felt too vulnerable. I get to keep doing work that matters. I get to save the foundation. That's not what I asked. She met his eyes. What else is there? Plenty of people would say family, love, companionship. I'm not most people. Clearly, Daniel rubbed his face, suddenly looking exhausted. I need to think about this. Of course. Take your time. She pulled out a business card and a slim folder. This contains the full proposal, financial terms, living arrangements, legal protections for both parties. My attorney drew it up. Have your own lawyer review it. I can't afford a lawyer. Yes, you can. I'll pay the retainer. Make sure you have proper representation. I don't want you agreeing to something you don't fully understand. He took the folder but didn't open it. Why me? Your lawyer's list must have had other options. Sophia considered lying, but something about his directness demanded honesty. Because you're the only one with a daughter. The will requires marriage, but it doesn't specify, it doesn't forbid children. Having a child, having Chloe, makes the marriage look more legitimate, less like the arrangement it actually is. So my daughter's a shield, a prop to make your fraud look real. Your daughter is a child who deserves a chance to live. And yes, her existence makes this arrangement more plausible to people who might question its legitimacy. Both things can be true. Daniel's expression hardened again. I should hate you for this. You probably should. But I don't. Not yet, anyway. I'm too tired to hate anyone. He moved toward the door, then paused. If I did this, and I'm not saying I will, but if I did, what would you expect from me? Day to day? Sophia hadn't expected this question. I'm not sure. We'd live together, obviously. Maintain appearances publicly. Beyond that, she faltered. We'd need to work out the details. You haven't thought this through. I've thought about saving the foundation. The personal logistics are secondary. Daniel shook his head slowly. See, that's the problem. For you, this is a business deal. But for Chloe, if she believes you're her stepmother, if she gets attached... He stopped, his throat working. Kids don't understand business deals. They understand family. And when you leave, I would never hurt her intentionally. but you would hurt her. Eventually, because that's what this arrangement guarantees, isn't it? No matter how carefully we manage it, someone gets hurt at the end. He was right, and they both knew it. I can't promise this will be painless, Sophia said quietly. I can only promise I'll do everything in my power to minimize the damage, and that the alternative, watching your daughter die because of pride or principle, is worse. The words hung in the air between them, brutal and true. Daniel left without another word. Passant. For 3 days, Sophia heard nothing. She threw herself into work, attending board meetings, reviewing grant applications, anything to avoid thinking about Daniel Hayes and his dying daughter and the completely insane proposal she'd made. On the 4th day, her phone rang at 11 p.m. I need to see the contract. Daniel's voice was rough, like he hadn't slept. All of it, every clause. I'll send it over first thing tomorrow. No, tonight, now, I need... He took a shaky breath. Chloe had a bad episode today. Collapsed at school. They called an ambulance. She's okay now, but the doctor said we can't wait much longer for the surgery. Sophia's heart clenched. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just send me the damn contract. She emailed it immediately, then sat by her phone like a teenager waiting for a text. At 2 a.m., it rang again. I have questions, Daniel said without preamble. Shoot. Clause 7 says we maintain separate bedrooms. Why specify that? Because we're not actually married. Not in any real sense. I thought you'd prefer... I do. I just wanted to make sure you weren't expecting... He stopped. Never mind. Next question. Clause 12 says all major decisions regarding Chloe require mutual agreement. Define major. They talked for 2 hours. Daniel went through the contract line by line, questioning everything, pushing back on terms he didn't like, demanding clarifications. Sophia found herself oddly impressed by how thorough he was, how carefully he protected his daughter's interests. Last question, he said finally. Clause 23, the moral character clause. Both parties agree to maintain behavior befitting the public reputation of the Sterling Foundation. What does that actually mean? It means no scandals, no public intoxication, no affairs, no criminal activity, nothing that would embarrass the foundation or call the legitimacy of our marriage into question. Affairs. His voice was flat. You really think I'd... It's a standard clause, Daniel. I'm not accusing you of anything. A long pause. Then, okay, I'm in. Sophia's heart stopped. What? I said I'm in. I'll marry you, for Chloe. His voice was hollow, defeated. I'll do it. She should have felt relief, victory. Instead, she felt something uncomfortably close to guilt. Are you sure? No, but I'm out of options, so let's do this before I change my mind. Okay. I'll have Richard draw up the final paperwork. We can sign next week, and I have one condition. Daniel's voice hardened. One thing that's not in your contract. Name it. We tell Chloe the truth, eventually. When she's old enough to understand, I won't lie to my daughter forever. Sophia closed her eyes. Agreed. And one more thing. You said one condition. I lied. Here's the second. You have to meet her. Before I sign anything, you meet Chloe. If she doesn't like you, if my gut says this will hurt her more than help her, the deal's off. I don't care about the money. That's fair. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Our apartment in Queens. He rattled off an address. Don't be late. He hung up before she could respond. Sophia sat in the dark, her phone still pressed to her ear, wondering what the hell she'd just gotten herself into. The building in Queens was nothing like Sophia's Manhattan penthouse. The elevator was broken. The hallway smelled like someone had cooked curry 3 days ago. Paint peeled from the walls in artistic patterns of neglect. Sophia knocked on apartment 4B at exactly 6 o'clock. Daniel opened the door. He looked worse than he had at the coffee shop, exhausted, wary, like he was barely holding himself together. You came, he said, as if he hadn't quite believed she would. I said I would. Rich people say a lot of things. I'm not most rich people. We'll see. He stepped aside. She's in the living room. Fair warning, she's going to ask you a million questions. She doesn't know why you're here, just that you're a friend. The apartment was small but meticulously clean, worn furniture that had clearly been cared for. Children's drawings taped to the refrigerator, a stuffed elephant on the couch, the same one from Chloe's photo. And there, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a coloring book, was the little girl who would change everything. Chloe Hayes looked up when Sophia entered, and for a moment neither of them spoke. She was tiny, fragile-looking in a way that made Sophia's throat tight. Her skin had an unhealthy pallor, and there were dark circles under her eyes that no 6-year-old should have. But she was smiling, this huge, genuine smile that lit up her whole face. "Hi." Chloe scrambled to her feet. "Are you Daddy's friend? He said someone was coming over. Are you nice? You look nice. I like your shoes." Sophia glanced down at her designer heels, suddenly feeling ridiculous. "Thank you. I like your elephant?" "This is Mr. Trunk." Chloe held up the stuffed animal proudly. "He's been with me for all my surgeries. Daddy says he's lucky." "He looks very lucky. Do you want to color with me? I'm working on a princess castle, but I can't decide if the flag should be pink or purple. What do you think?" Sophia looked at Daniel, who was watching this exchange with an unreadable expression. He gave her a slight nod. "Purple," Sophia heard herself say. "Definitely purple." She found herself sitting on the floor, her expensive dress be damned, coloring with a 6-year-old who talked non-stop about everything and nothing. School, friends, the mean boy who pulled her hair, the butterflies she'd seen in the park. "Do you have any kids?" Chloe asked suddenly. "No, I don't." "Do you want kids?" Sophia hesitated. Chloe was watching her with those serious eyes, waiting for a real answer. "I never thought I did," Sophia said carefully, "but maybe I just never met the right kid." Chloe beamed. "I'm a pretty good kid. Daddy says so, even when I'm sick." "I bet you are." "Are you going to marry my daddy?" The question came out of nowhere, delivered with the casual bluntness only children could manage. Sophia's hand froze mid-crayon stroke. She looked at Daniel, who had gone pale. "Chloe," he started. "What?" Chloe looked between them. "You told Uncle Mike on the phone that you might get married. I heard you. I wasn't trying to listen, but I was in the bathroom and the walls are thin." Daniel rubbed his face. "We're discussing it." "Good." Chloe turned back to Sophia. "If you marry Daddy, does that mean you'd be my mom?" The air in the room seemed to evaporate. Sophia couldn't breathe. This child, this sick, hopeful child, was looking at her like she held the answer to something important. "Not exactly," Sophia managed. "I'd be your stepmother. That's different." "But you'd live with us." "Yes." "And you'd help take care of me?" Yes, I suppose so." "Then that's basically a mom." Chloe said this with the absolute certainty of someone who knew exactly how the world worked. "My friend Jessica has a stepmom, and she says it's basically the same thing, except you don't have to look alike." Sophia's carefully constructed walls were cracking. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was supposed to be a transaction, a business arrangement. She wasn't supposed to feel anything. But Chloe was looking at her with such naked hope, such desperate longing for something Sophia had never been able to give anyone, that she felt something inside her chest begin to splinter. "I should go," Sophia said abruptly, standing up. "I have an early meeting tomorrow." Chloe's face fell. "But you just got here, and we didn't finish the castle." "I'm sorry, I really have to. Will you come back?" Chloe's voice was small. "Please?" Sophia looked at Daniel. He was watching her with an expression that might have been a warning or a challenge. Maybe both. "Yes," Sophia heard herself say. "I'll come back." Chloe threw her arms around Sophia's waist in a hug so sudden and fierce that Sophia almost stumbled. She stood there, frozen, unsure what to do with her hands. "Chloe, let her go," Daniel said gently. "Okay." Chloe pulled back but kept smiling. "Bye, Sophia. See you soon." Daniel walked her to the door. In the hallway, he spoke quietly. "She liked you." "She's 6. She likes everyone." "No, she doesn't." He crossed his arms. "She's wary around most adults, doctors especially. But you—" He shook his head. "I don't know what you did in there, but she lit up." "I didn't do anything." "Exactly. You didn't try too hard, didn't talk down to her. You just treated her like a person." He paused. "So here's my answer. I'll sign your contract. We'll do this. But if you hurt her, I won't." You will, eventually. That's built into the arrangement. But if you hurt her unnecessarily, if you're careless with her heart, his voice was dangerous. Contract or no contract, inheritance or no inheritance, I will make you regret it. Understood? Sophia met his eyes. Understood. She left before he could see her hands shaking. Tids. The wedding happened 3 weeks later in a small courthouse ceremony with only Richard and Daniel's brother as witnesses. No flowers, no music, no pretense that this was anything other than what it was, a legal transaction. Sophia wore a simple cream dress. Daniel wore a suit that didn't quite fit. They spoke their vows in monotone voices, signed the papers, and became husband and wife in less than 15 minutes. Chloe wasn't there. They'd agreed it would be too much, too confusing. They'd tell her after, spin it as a romantic surprise. They'd lie to her together. In the car afterward, Daniel stared out the window, his new wedding ring catching the light. I can't believe I just did that, he said. You're not alone. $300,000. That's what I'm worth, apparently. What we're all worth. Daniel, don't. He turned to face her. Don't try to make this noble. Don't pretend this is anything other than what it is. You bought me. I sold myself. And my daughter is going to pay the price for both our desperation. The surgery is scheduled for next week. She's going to live. And in 2 years, when you leave, what then? When she's healthy and happy and thinks you're her mother and you just disappear. What happens to her then? Sophia didn't have an answer. They rode the rest of the way in silence. But the reception was that evening at Sophia's penthouse, a small gathering to make the marriage look legitimate. Foundation board members, a few carefully selected society friends, Daniel's brother, and a couple of his construction crew. Sophia watched Daniel move through the crowd like a man at his own funeral. He shook hands, made small talk, played the role of devoted husband with the enthusiasm of someone getting a root canal. He hates this, Richard murmured at her elbow. He hates me. Give him time. We don't have time, Richard. We have a contract with an expiration date. Across the room, Daniel's brother Mike was watching them with undisguised suspicion. He'd pulled Daniel aside twice already, clearly trying to talk sense into him. At 8 o'clock, Daniel's phone rang. He answered it, listened for a moment, and his entire expression transformed. The careful blankness vanished, replaced by something that looked like joy and terror mixed together. He found Sophia in the crowd. That was the hospital, he said. They moved up Chloe's surgery. It's tomorrow morning. She's ready. The room seemed to tilt. Tomorrow, but I thought, a donor heart became available. They need to do it now. His hands were shaking. I need to go. I need to be with her. Of course. Go. He was already moving toward the door. Then he stopped, turned back. Come with me. What? Come with me. To the hospital. His jaw was tight. You're my wife now. This is what wives do, right? They show up. It wasn't really a request. Sophia grabbed her coat. Mautats. Mount Sinai's pediatric wing was painted in cheerful colors that couldn't quite mask the institutional smell of antiseptic and fear. Sophia followed Daniel through corridors he clearly knew by heart, past rooms full of sick children, until they reached room 408. Chloe was in bed, looking impossibly small under the hospital sheets. She brightened when she saw them. Daddy! Sophia! Then her eyes went wide. Wait! Why are you together? Did something happen? Daniel sat on the edge of her bed. Something good happened. Sophia and I got married today. Chloe's mouth fell open. You did? Really? For real? For real. So you're my mom now? She looked at Sophia with such hope it physically hurt. Sophia opened her mouth, closed it. What were you supposed to say to a child when you just married her father for money? I'm your stepmother, she managed. Yes. But you'll stay. Even after my surgery, you won't leave? I won't leave. It was the first real promise Sophia made, and the first real lie. Chloe's smile could have lit up the whole hospital. This is the best day ever, even better than the surgery tomorrow. Speaking of which, Daniel said gently, the doctors say this new heart is a perfect match. They're going to make you all better. Will it hurt? You'll be asleep, and when you wake up, you'll be stronger. You'll be able to run and play and do all the things other kids do. And you'll both be here? When I wake up? Sophia and Daniel looked at each other. In that moment, something passed between them. Not affection, not trust, but a shared understanding. They'd made this choice. Now they had to live with it. "We'll both be here," Sophia said. Chloe fell asleep around midnight, still holding Sophia's hand. The nurses had brought in an extra chair, and now Sophia and Daniel sat on opposite sides of the bed in silence, watching the little girl who'd become the center of their strange arrangement. "She's going to be okay," Sophia said quietly. "The doctors said—" "I know what the doctors said." Daniel's voice was rough. "But anything can go wrong. Surgery is surgery. She's 6 years old, and they're going to crack open her chest, and—" He stopped, pressing his palms against his eyes. Without thinking, Sophia reached across the bed. Her hand found his. He didn't pull away. They sat like that for hours, two strangers bound by a contract and a promise, holding hands across the bed of a sleeping child, waiting for morning to come. When the nurses came to take Chloe to surgery, she woke up confused and scared. She reached for both of them. "I love you, Daddy," she whispered. "I love you too, sweetheart, so much." Then she turned to Sophia, and her next words shattered something inside Sophia's carefully guarded heart. "I love you too, Mom." Sophia's throat closed. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She just nodded and squeezed Chloe's hand as they wheeled her away. In the waiting room, Daniel paced while Sophia sat frozen in a plastic chair, Chloe's words echoing in her head. Mom. She'd been called many things in her life. Heiress, philanthropist, ice queen, but never that. Never something so simple and terrifying and real. "This was a mistake," she whispered. Daniel stopped pacing. "What?" "This whole thing, the contract, the marriage. I can't—" She looked up at him, and for the first time let him see the fear. "I don't know how to be anyone's mother. I can barely take care of myself. What if I mess this up? What if I hurt her worse than if we'd never— Stop. Daniel sat beside her, not touching, but close. "You think I know what I'm doing? I've been figuring this out as I go for 6 years. There's no manual. You just love them. You show up. That's all kids really need." "I don't know if I can do that." "Yeah, you do. You're here, aren't you, at 4 in the morning, in a hospital waiting room, terrified for a kid you barely know. That's showing up." They sat in silence for a long moment. "I'm supposed to leave in 2 years, Sophia said finally. "That's the contract." "I know. How do I show up for someone when I'm planning my exit?" Daniel didn't answer, because there was no good answer. The surgery took 7 hours. 7 hours of bad coffee, mindless pacing, and a terror that Sophia had never experienced before. She'd thought she understood fear of failure, fear of losing the foundation, fear of ending up alone. But this was different. This was the fear of losing someone else, someone small and brave and full of hope that Sophia knew she didn't deserve. When the surgeon finally emerged, still in his scrubs, both Sophia and Daniel jumped to their feet. "She did beautifully," Dr. Martinez said, and Sophia felt her knees go weak. "The heart is functioning perfectly. She's in recovery now. She'll be in ICU for a few days, but barring any complications, she should make a full recovery." Daniel actually sobbed. Just once, a sound of pure relief that he tried to swallow back. Sophia found herself grabbing his arm, holding him up as much as herself. "Can we see her?" Daniel asked. "Soon. Let her wake up a bit more. But yes, soon." After the surgeon left, Daniel turned to Sophia. His eyes were red, his face streaked with tears he wasn't bothering to hide. "Thank you," he said. "Whatever else happens, whatever this arrangement turns into, thank you for giving me this, for giving her a chance." Sophia wanted to say something profound, something that would capture the magnitude of what had just happened. Instead, she just nodded, because she was starting to realize something terrifying. This contract had been supposed to save the foundation, but somehow, in a hospital waiting room at dawn, it had started saving her instead. Chloe came home from the hospital on a Tuesday afternoon, and Sophia's penthouse stopped being hers alone. The movers had brought Daniel and Chloe's belongings the week before, a depressing collection of worn furniture, cardboard boxes, and the accumulated debris of a life lived paycheck to paycheck. Sophia had quietly arranged for most of it to be donated, replacing it with new things, better things. A bed fit for a recovering child, a desk for homework, toys that didn't look like they'd survived a war. Daniel had been furious when he found out. "You can't just throw away our stuff," he'd said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. They were standing in what was now Chloe's room, a space Sophia had hired a decorator to transform into something between a princess castle and a library, all soft purples and fairy lights. "I didn't throw it away. I donated it." Without asking me. "It was falling apart, Daniel. That couch had springs poking through. Chloe's mattress was older than she was. It was ours. It was—" He stopped, running his hand through his hair in frustration. "You can't just erase our life because it doesn't fit your aesthetic." "I'm not trying to erase anything. I'm trying to make this place feel like home for her." "This isn't home. This is a museum with a rent-a-family living in it." The words stung more than Sophia wanted to admit. She looked around the carefully decorated room, seeing it suddenly through his eyes. It was beautiful, professional, completely soulless. "I'm trying," she said quietly. "I don't know how to do this. Any of this. I'm trying." Something shifted in Daniel's expression. The anger didn't disappear, but it softened around the edges. "I know, but maybe try asking next time. Before you make decisions that affect my daughter?" "Our daughter," Sophia said before she could stop herself. "According to the contract." "Right, the contract." Daniel's jaw tightened again. "How could I forget?" He left before she could figure out what to say to fix it. Now, watching Chloe shuffle slowly through the front door, supported by a nurse on one side and Daniel on the other, Sophia felt completely out of her depth. The little girl was pale and moving carefully, one hand pressed against her chest where the surgical incision was still healing beneath her shirt. "Welcome home," Sophia said, and immediately felt stupid. Welcome home to a place Chloe had never lived, to a family that wasn't real. But Chloe's face lit up anyway. "This is where we live now? For real?" "For real," Daniel confirmed, though his voice was strained. "It's so pretty. Can I see my room? The nurse said I can walk a little bit as long as I'm careful." Sophia led the way, hyper-aware of every step Chloe took, every small wince when she moved too quickly. The doctor had said she'd be fine. The children were resilient, that she'd be running around in a few weeks. But knowing that intellectually and watching a 6-year-old struggle to walk down a hallway were two very different things. When Chloe saw her new room, she gasped. "Is this really mine?" "All yours," Sophia said. "But it's so big, and there's so many books, and is that—" She moved toward the window seat, slowly, carefully. "I can see the whole city from here. I thought you might like to read there, when you're feeling better." Chloe turned to look at her, and there were tears in her eyes. "Nobody's ever done anything this nice for me before." Daniel made a sound low in his throat. Sophia couldn't look at him. "Well," she said, her voice not quite steady, "you deserve nice things." The nurse helped Chloe into bed, the new bed with the orthopedic mattress and the mountain of pillows, and went over the medication schedule with Daniel. Sophia stood awkwardly by the door, unsure if she should stay or go, feeling like an intruder in her own home. "Sophia?" Chloe's voice was small. "Will you stay? Just for a little bit?" "Of course." She sat on the edge of the bed while Daniel walked the nurse out. Chloe was fighting sleep, her eyes drooping despite her obvious effort to stay awake. "I'm scared," she whispered. Sophia's heart clenched. "Of what?" "That I'll wake up and this will all be a dream. The surgery, the new heart, you and Daddy being married, all of it. It's not a dream." "Promise?" Sophia took Chloe's small hand in hers. "I promise, this is real." And in that moment, she meant it. Even knowing what she knew about the contract, the timeline, the inevitable ending. In that moment, sitting beside a frightened child in a too-big bed, she meant every word. Chloe fell asleep, still holding her hand. Daniel found them like that when he came back. "You don't have to stay," he said quietly. "I can sit with her." "I want to." He studied her face for a long moment, as if trying to figure out whether she was lying. Finally, he nodded and pulled up a chair on the other side of the bed. They sat in silence, watching Chloe sleep. Outside the windows, the city glittered against the darkening sky. Sophia had sat in this apartment thousands of times, looking at this view, and never once had it felt like this. Like something other than just a place she happened to live. She really likes you, Daniel said eventually. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't either. Kids are usually good judges of character. She can spot a fake a mile away. Are you saying I'm not a fake? I'm saying she doesn't think you are, which is either a testament to your acting skills or… He stopped. Or what? Or maybe you're not as cold as you pretend to be. Sophia didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. We need to talk about how this is going to work, Daniel continued, day to day. We can't keep tiptoeing around each other. What do you suggest? Honesty, at least between us. When Chloe's not around… He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I'm angry about this situation. I'm angry at myself for agreeing to it, angry at you for proposing it, angry at the universe for putting us here. But I'm also grateful that my daughter is alive. Both things are true, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Fair enough? Your turn. Sophia looked at Chloe's sleeping face. I'm terrified. I've spent my entire adult life avoiding exactly this kind of entanglement. And now I'm living with a man I barely know, and a child who calls me mom, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm waiting for the moment I screw this up so badly that… Her voice cracked. That I prove everyone right about me. Who's everyone? My parents. My grandfather. Everyone who ever said I was too cold, too selfish, too focused on work to ever be capable of caring about anything real. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. You're here, aren't you? At 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night, holding my daughter's hand while she sleeps? That doesn't seem cold to me. Give it time. Maybe. Or maybe you're not who you think you are. He stood, stretching. I'm going to bed. Her pain medication is on the nightstand. She gets another dose at midnight if she wakes up. Can you handle it, or should I set an alarm? I can handle it. Okay. He paused at the door. Sophia, thank you for all of this. I mean it. After he left, Sophia sat in the dark with a sleeping child, wondering how her life had become so completely unrecognizable in the span of 3 weeks. The first few days established a rhythm that felt more like a ceasefire than a routine. Daniel worked from home while Chloe recovered, taking calls from his construction sites while hovering anxiously nearby. Sophia tried to maintain her normal schedule, board meetings, site visits, fundraising calls, but found herself cutting things short, rushing home to check on Chloe. You don't have to do that, Daniel said on the 4th day, finding her in Chloe's room at 3 in the afternoon. I've got her. I know, I just wanted to see how she was doing. Chloe looked up from the puzzle they'd been working on. Sophia, look, we're almost done with the edges. That's great, sweetheart. The word had slipped out without thinking. Sweetheart, like she'd been saying it for years instead of days. Daniel noticed. His expression was complicated. Can Sophia help us finish? Chloe asked. Puzzles are more fun with 3 people. I really should get back to work. Please? Just for a little bit? Sophia found herself sitting on the floor again, fitting puzzle pieces together while Chloe narrated a complicated story about the picture they were assembling. Something involving dragons and a princess who didn't need rescuing because she could rescue herself. That's a good princess, Sophia said. She's like you, Chloe announced. How so? She's strong and smart, and she doesn't wait for people to fix her problems. She fixes them herself. Chloe fitted another piece into place with a triumphant sound. Daddy told me you run a big company that helps people. It's a foundation, not quite the same thing. What's the difference? A foundation gives money away. A company makes money. So you're rich? Chloe asked with the blunt curiosity of a child. Chloe, Daniel started, but Sophia held up a hand. Yes, I'm rich. Is that why you live in this big apartment? Yes. Is that why you married Daddy? Because you're rich and we're not? The room went silent. Daniel looked like he might be sick. Sophia's first instinct was to deflect, to sugarcoat, to lie. Instead, she chose something closer to truth. Your dad and I got married because we both needed something. He needed help taking care of you. I needed… She paused, choosing her words carefully. I needed a family. So we made an agreement to help each other. Like a deal? Sort of. But the best part of the deal is that I get to know you. Chloe considered this with the seriousness of a judge. Okay, that makes sense. Jessica's mom and stepdad got married because her mom needed someone to help with the house, and he needed someone to cook. But they love each other now. Do they? Sophia asked quietly. Yeah, Jessica says you can tell because they smile at each other a lot, even when they think nobody's watching. Chloe looked between Sophia and Daniel. You guys don't smile at each other much. We're still getting used to being married, Daniel said. Oh, okay. Chloe yawned. I'm tired. Can I take a nap? After they got her settled, Daniel and Sophia stood in the hallway, not quite looking at each other. She's smart, Sophia said. Too smart. She's going to figure out this whole arrangement eventually. Maybe that's not the worst thing. You said we'd tell her the truth someday anyway. When she's older, not when she's 6 and recovering from major surgery. Daniel rubbed his face. And definitely not in a way that makes her think she's some kind of transaction. I didn't mean it like that. I know, but that's how it sounded. He started to walk away, then stopped. For what it's worth, you handled that better than I expected. The honesty thing. Most people would have lied. I'm tired of lying. Yeah, me too. The next morning, Sophia woke to the smell of burning pancakes. She stumbled into the kitchen to find Daniel standing over the stove, swearing under his breath, while smoke poured from a pan. What are you doing? Attempting breakfast. It's not going well. He dumped the charred remains into the sink. Chloe wanted pancakes. I'm a disaster in the kitchen. Let me. You cook? I have hidden talents. It was a lie. She could barely cook. But she pulled up a recipe on her phone and managed to produce something vaguely pancake-shaped that didn't actively smoke. Daniel watched with barely concealed amusement as she muttered curses at the batter. You're not as perfect as you look, he observed. Nobody's perfect. Yeah, but you do a good impression of it. The clothes, the apartment, the way you handle board meetings. Richard showed me some footage from a fundraiser last year. You look like you were born knowing how to navigate that world. Lots of practice, and a good therapist. He laughed, surprised. You go to therapy? Religiously? Every Tuesday for the past 6 years. How else do you think I managed to function in high society circles when I fundamentally can't stand most of the people in them? I just assumed you were naturally good at faking it. Oh, I am, but even faking it takes work. She flipped a pancake with more force than necessary. My therapist says I have maladaptive attachment patterns stemming from childhood emotional neglect, which is fancy talk for saying my parents were cold and it messed me up. My therapist says I have control issues from losing my wife, Daniel said quietly. Sophia nearly dropped the spatula. You were married before? For 3 years. She died when Chloe was 2. Aneurysm. He snapped his fingers. Gone. No warning. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. But his voice said it wasn't. Not really. The control thing, though, that's accurate. I can't delegate, can't ask for help, can't trust anyone else to take care of what matters. It's why my business was failing even before Chloe got sick. I was trying to do everything myself. Is that why you hated my proposal so much? Because it meant giving up control? Partly. Also because it felt like admitting I couldn't handle my own life. He took the spatula from her hands. Your pancakes are burning. They finished breakfast together in a silence that felt less hostile than it had before. When they brought the plate to Chloe, she squealed with delight. You made these together, like a real family? We made them together, Sophia confirmed, not addressing the second part. They're perfect. They weren't. They were lumpy and slightly burnt and definitely not Instagram-worthy. But Chloe ate 3 of them anyway, syrup running down her chin, grinning like she'd been served a gourmet meal. Watching her, Sophia felt something dangerous growing in her chest, something warm and terrifying that felt suspiciously like belonging. The first real fight happened 2 weeks later. Sophia came home from a fundraiser to find Daniel in the living room, surrounded by papers, his laptop open, looking haggard. What's all this? She asked. Business stuff. I'm trying to figure out how to restart Hayes & Sons now that we have capital. He didn't look up. Turns out being solvent opens up possibilities. That's good. Yeah, except I can't focus because I keep thinking about Chloe starting school next week, and whether she's really ready, and whether I should hire more guys or keep the crew small, and... He slammed the laptop shut. I'm sorry. I know you don't care about construction company logistics. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. This isn't your world. No, Sophia agreed. But Chloe is in my world now. And you are too, whether we like it or not. So if you're stressed about the business, talk to me. Why would I do that? Because I run a multi-million-dollar foundation. I might actually be able to help. Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. Right, because a billionaire knows so much about running a small construction company. Business is business. Scale doesn't change the fundamentals. That's exactly the kind of thing someone who's never had to choose between paying rent or buying groceries would say. The words hit like a slap. Sophia felt her defenses slam into place. Excuse me? You heard me. You sit in your penthouse and make pronouncements about business fundamentals, but you've never actually struggled. You've never had to what? Work hard? Fight for something? Prove myself? Sophia's voice was rising. You don't know anything about my life. I know you inherited your position. I know you were born into money. I know... You know nothing. She was shaking now, fury and something else, hurt maybe, flooding through her. You think because I had money, I had it easy? My parents were emotionally abusive. My grandfather was a controlling narcissist who made love conditional on achievement. I was 7 years old the first time my mother told me I was a disappointment. I spent my entire childhood trying to earn affection that was never coming. So don't you dare tell me I haven't struggled just because my struggles came with a trust fund attached. Be ye shays. Daniel stared at her, his expression shifting from anger to something like shock. I didn't. No, you didn't. You assumed. Just like everyone assumes that money fixes everything. It doesn't. It just changes what breaks you. She grabbed her coat. I'm going for a walk. Sophia, wait. But she was already out the door. She walked for hours, her designer heels clicking against pavement, not caring where she was going. The foundation office, the park, streets she'd never been down before, anywhere but the penthouse that was starting to feel less like a sanctuary and more like a cage she'd locked herself in. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Daniel calling. She ignored it. It was past midnight when she finally came back. The apartment was dark except for a single lamp in the living room. Daniel was still awake, sitting on the couch, waiting. I'm sorry, he said as soon as she walked in. That was out of line. I made assumptions based on prejudice, basically. I was wrong. Sophia stood in the doorway, exhausted. Yes, you were. I get defensive when I feel out of control. And being here, in your space, living off your money, it makes me feel like I'm failing, like I'm not a good enough father or provider or... He stopped. But that's my issue, not yours. You didn't deserve what I said. She sat down, leaving space between them. I get defensive too. When people assume my life has been easy, I won't make that assumption again. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the city hummed with late-night traffic. The business stuff, Sophia said finally. If you want help, I meant it. I have contacts, resources, and I'm actually pretty good at strategic planning. I might take you up on that. Okay. Another silence, less uncomfortable this time. Chloe cried when you didn't come home for dinner, Daniel said quietly. She thought you left because of her. Guilt punched through Sophia's chest. What did you tell her? That we had a fight. That married people fight sometimes. That it didn't mean you were leaving. Was she okay? Eventually, but Sophia, he turned to face her. We can't do that. We can't let our issues hurt her. That has to be the line. Agreed. Which means we need to figure out how to actually live together. Not just coexist, but function as something resembling a team. I don't know how to do that. Yeah, well, I'm not great at it either, but we're going to have to learn. He stood. I'm going to bed, but tomorrow, let's sit down and actually talk. Figure out rules or boundaries or whatever we need to make this work. Daniel? He turned back. I really am sorry about leaving like that. I know, me too. After he left, Sophia sat alone in the dark, thinking about the little girl sleeping down the hall, who'd cried because she thought her stepmother had abandoned her. The little girl who was starting to carve out a space in Sophia's carefully guarded heart, whether Sophia wanted her to or not. This was supposed to be simple. A business arrangement with clear terms and a definite endpoint. Instead, it was becoming the most complicated thing Sophia had ever done. The next morning, they sat at the kitchen table while Chloe was still asleep, coffee between them, and tried to figure out how to be a family. "Okay," Daniel said, pulling out a notepad. "Ground rules. You start." "We don't fight in front of Chloe." "Agreed. Next." "We make decisions that affect her together. No unilateral moves." "Like redecorating her room without asking?" Sophia winced. "Yes, like that. I really am sorry about—" "I know. It's fine. The room's actually great." He wrote it down. "What else?" They spent 2 hours hammering out an agreement that was part custody arrangement, part roommate contract, part marriage counseling session. Who handled what with Chloe? How they'd split household responsibilities. What they owed each other in terms of communication and respect. "This feels very transactional," Sophia observed. "Everything about the situation is transactional. Might as well be clear about it." "Right. The contract." "The contract," he echoed, but something in his voice sounded less certain than it had before. Chloe started first grade the following Monday. Sophia had a board meeting scheduled for the same time, but she canceled it. Daniel looked surprised when she appeared in the kitchen, dressed for school drop-off instead of the office. "I thought you had a meeting." "I rescheduled. This is more important." Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. Chloe was a bundle of nervous energy, chattering nonstop about her new backpack, her teacher, whether the other kids would like her. She'd been cleared medically to return to school, but there were still restrictions. No gym class. No running at recess. A note from her doctor explaining her limitations. "What if they think I'm weird?" she asked in the car. "Then they're the weird ones," Sophia said firmly. "You just had major surgery. You're basically a superhero. Superheroes don't get tired walking upstairs." "Some do, and they're still superheroes." At the school entrance, Chloe suddenly grabbed both their hands. "Will you both walk me in, please?" Daniel and Sophia looked at each other. They hadn't planned on making a public appearance together as a family. The fewer people who knew about their situation, the better. But Chloe was looking up at them with those big, hopeful eyes, and neither of them could say no. So they walked her in together, hand in hand with their daughter between them, looking for all the world like a real family. The other parents stared. Sophia could feel their eyes, their speculation. Daniel Hayes, the struggling contractor, married to Sophia Sterling, the billionaire heiress. It would be gossip gold by lunchtime. She didn't care. At Chloe's classroom door, the little girl hugged them both. "I love you," she whispered to Daniel. Then she turned to Sophia. "I love you too." And Sophia, who'd spent 30 years keeping her heart locked down, heard herself say, "I love you too, sweetheart." The words felt foreign, terrifying, also true. After they dropped her off, Daniel and Sophia stood in the parking lot, not quite looking at each other. "She's going to be fine," Daniel said, though he sounded like he was trying to convince himself. "She's going to be great." "Did you mean it?" He turned to face her. "What you said in there." Sophia's throat was tight. "I don't know. Maybe. Is that allowed?" "I don't know either. It's not in the contract." They stood there for a long moment, two people who'd agreed to a fake marriage, trying to figure out when it had started feeling real. The question hung between them in the parking lot, unanswered. Daniel's phone rang before either of them could figure out what to say next. A contractor with an emergency at a job site. Sophia had emails piling up that couldn't wait. They went their separate ways, the moment dissolving into the practical demands of their separate lives. But something had shifted. Sophia felt it during her afternoon meetings, found herself distracted by the memory of Chloe's arms around her waist, the weight of those 3 words she'd said without thinking. Daniel texted her twice during the day, once to share a photo Chloe's teacher had sent of her at recess, smiling with a group of girls, and once to ask if Sophia would be home for dinner. She typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on a simple yes. When she walked through the door at 6:30, she found Chloe at the kitchen table, homework spread out in front of her, Daniel standing at the stove attempting something that smelled vaguely like marinara sauce. "You're cooking again?" Sophia asked, dropping her briefcase. "Attempting to cook. There's a difference." He gestured at a pot that was definitely too hot, the sauce bubbling aggressively. "How do you make this not burn?" "Lower the heat and stir it." "I am stirring it." "More than once every 5 minutes," Chloe giggled from the table. "You guys are funny when you cook together. We're funny separately too, Daniel muttered, but he turned down the burner. Sophia found herself falling into the routine they'd been building without acknowledging it, helping Chloe with math problems while Daniel finished dinner, setting the table, pouring water into glasses. Small domestic tasks that should have felt foreign, but somehow didn't anymore. Over pasta that was slightly overcooked and sauce that was slightly burnt, Chloe talked nonstop about her first day. The friend she'd made named Emma, the art project they were starting tomorrow. How her teacher, Miss Rodriguez, had a fish tank with actual real fish in the classroom. And nobody made fun of me for not doing gym, she added, twirling spaghetti around her fork with the concentration of a surgeon. Emma said her cousin has asthma, so he can't do gym either, and that it's totally normal to have limitations. Emma sounds smart, Sophia said. She is. She's my best friend now. You made a best friend in one day? When you know, you know. Chloe shrugged, as if this was obvious. Like you and Daddy. You got married super fast, right? Daniel choked on his water. Sophia felt her face heat. It was pretty fast, Daniel admitted. See? When you know, you know. Chloe took another bite of pasta. Can Emma come over sometime? I want to show her my room. Sure, Sophia said. At the same time, Daniel said, We'll see. They looked at each other. Chloe looked between them. You guys need to work on your communication, she said seriously. Ms. Rodriguez says communication is the foundation of all relationships. Miss Rodriguez sounds like she's been reading therapy books, Daniel muttered. After dinner, Chloe asked Sophia to help with her bath. It was something Daniel usually did, and Sophia felt the weight of the trust being offered. She helped Chloe into the tub, carefully avoiding the still-healing surgical scar, listened to more stories about Emma and Ms. Rodriguez and the fish tank, and tried not to think about how normal this was starting to feel. Can I ask you something? Chloe said, playing with the bubbles. Of course. Do you love my dad? Sophia's hand stilled on the washcloth. That's a big question. Jessica says you can tell if people love each other by how they look at each other. She says her mom and stepdad didn't love each other at first either, but now they do. Your dad and I. Sophia paused, searching for words that were honest without being cruel. We care about each other. We're figuring things out. But you'll stay, right? Even if you're still figuring it out? Yes, I'll stay. Promise? The word caught in Sophia's throat. She'd made this promise before, in the hospital, and she'd meant it then too. But each time she said it, it felt heavier, more real, more like a vow she wasn't sure she could keep. I promise, she said anyway. Chloe smiled, satisfied, and went back to playing with the bubbles. But Sophia sat there, water soaking into her expensive silk blouse, wondering when exactly she'd stopped lying. That night, after Chloe was asleep, Sophia found Daniel on the balcony. The city stretched out below them, 1,000 lights against the darkness. He was drinking beer from a bottle. She'd noticed he kept them in the back of the fridge, never drinking more than one, like he was rationing permission to relax. She asked me if I love you, Sophia said, leaning against the railing beside him. Daniel didn't look surprised. What did you tell her? That we're figuring things out. Diplomatic? Honest. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself. What would you have said? I don't know. 3 months ago, the answer would have been easy. Now, he took a drink. Now, nothing about this is easy. No. They stood in silence, the city noise a distant hum. I don't hate you anymore, Daniel said quietly. I thought I would. Thought I'd spend 2 years resenting you for putting us in this situation. But you're trying. With Chloe. With me. You're actually trying. So are you. Yeah, well, spite is exhausting. Turns out it's easier to just... He gestured vaguely. Be decent to each other. Revolutionary concept. He almost smiled. My therapist would be proud. Yours too, probably. Mine would say we're making progress. Then she'd remind me that progress isn't linear and I should prepare for setbacks. Sounds like a fun lady. She's excellent at her job, which mostly involves calling me on my bullshit. Daniel turned to look at her properly. What bullshit is she calling you on lately? Sophia considered deflecting, but something about the darkness and the quiet and the beer loosening Daniel's usual guardedness made her want to be honest. That I keep everyone at arm's length because I'm terrified of being hurt. That I use work as an excuse to avoid actual human connection. That I've built my entire identity around the foundation because it's safer than building it around relationships. She paused. That I'm falling for my fake husband and his daughter, and it scares the hell out of me. The words hung in the air. Daniel's expression was unreadable. Your therapist said all that? The last part's new. That's me saying it.
Oh, yeah.
Another silence, longer this time. Sophia's heart was pounding. She'd just admitted something she'd barely admitted to herself, and Daniel was standing there looking at her like he was trying to solve a complicated equation. I need to tell you something, he said finally, about why I really said yes to your proposal. You said yes for Chloe. That was part of it, but there was another reason. He set down his beer. I was tired of being alone. After my wife died, I threw myself into being a father and running the business, and I told myself that was enough, that I didn't need anything else. But it wasn't true. I was lonely as hell. And when you showed up with your crazy proposal, part of me, a part I didn't want to admit existed, saw it as a way to not be alone anymore, even if it was fake. It doesn't feel fake anymore. No, it doesn't. They looked at each other, really looked, maybe for the first time since this whole thing started. Sophia saw the exhaustion in Daniel's eyes, but also something warmer, something that matched the feeling growing in her chest. This is a bad idea, she said. Terrible idea. We have a contract, an endpoint. Getting emotionally involved just makes it messier. Definitely messier. So we should probably maintain professional distance. Absolutely. Neither of them moved. Sophia, don't. She held up a hand. If you're about to say something that changes things, don't. Not yet. Let me have a few more days of pretending this is manageable. Daniel nodded slowly. Okay, a few more days. But they both knew the pretending was already over. The foundation's annual gala was 3 weeks away, and Sophia had been dreading it since the wedding. It was the biggest fundraiser of the year. 200 of New York's wealthiest and most influential people gathered to drink expensive wine and write large checks. She'd attended dozens of them, had the schmoozing down to a science. But she'd never attended one with a husband before. You don't have to go, she told Daniel over breakfast, watching him read through the event details she'd given him. I can make an excuse. Say you're sick. And miss a chance to wear a tux and eat fancy food? I don't think so. Daniel, these events they're exhausting. People will ask intrusive questions. The press will be there. It's going to be a circus. So? I can handle a circus. He looked up from the paper. Unless you don't want me there. That's not it. Then what? Sophia struggled to articulate the knot of anxiety in her stomach. These people knew my grandfather. They knew my parents. They're going to look at you and make judgments about where you're from, what you do, whether you're good enough for a Sterling, and it's going to be ugly. You think I can't handle some rich people being snobs? I think you shouldn't have to. She stopped. I think I don't want you to see that world. The fake smiles and the performative charity and the people who measure your worth by your bank account. It's poison. Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. The gesture was becoming familiar, natural. Sophia, I'm going. You're not protecting me from anything by leaving me home. We're in this together, remember? The word settled something in her chest. Okay. Together. Together. Chloe wandered into the kitchen, still in her pajamas, hair sticking up in every direction. Are we talking about the fancy party? How do you know about the fancy party? Daniel asked. I heard you guys talking about it last week. Can I come? It's past your bedtime, sweetheart, Sophia said. And it's very boring, just a lot of adults talking about money. But I want to see you in a pretty dress. And Daddy in a tux. Chloe climbed into Sophia's lap without asking, something she'd started doing in the past few weeks. Please? Sophia looked at Daniel over Chloe's head. He shrugged, a gesture that said your call. We'll see, Sophia said, which was parent speak for probably not, but I don't want to fight about it right now. Chloe seemed satisfied with this answer and launched into a story about Emma and the fish tank, and something that happened yesterday that Sophia had already heard twice but listened to anyway, because Chloe was warm and solid in her lap, and this was apparently what mornings were like now. The day of the gala arrived too fast. Sophia spent the morning at the venue overseeing final preparations, micromanaging details that the event planner had under control because it gave her something to do with her anxiety. She came home to find Daniel pacing the living room in his tux, looking like he might bolt. "I can't do this," he said as soon as she walked in. "I can't go to this thing and pretend to be someone I'm not." "You're not pretending to be anyone. You're going as yourself." "Myself in a rented tux at a party where the cheapest bottle of wine costs more than my monthly rent used to." "So? You belong there as much as anyone else." "Do I?" He turned to face her. "Be honest. Are you embarrassed by me?" The question hit her like a punch. "What? No. Why would you?" "Because you've been tense about this for weeks. Because you keep giving me these worried looks like you're bracing for disaster. Because—" He ran his hand through his hair, messing up whatever attempt he'd made to style it. "Because I'm a construction worker who didn't graduate college, and you're a billionaire philanthropist, and everyone at that party is going to know I don't belong with you." Sophia set down her bag very carefully, walked over to him, put her hands on his chest, feeling his heart racing under her palms. "Listen to me. I'm not embarrassed by you. I'm embarrassed by them, by the people who will judge you based on your job or your bank account or where you grew up. You're a better person than 90% of the people in that room. You work hard, you love your daughter, you're honest and decent and real in a way that most of them stopped being years ago." She paused. "If I've been tense, it's because I'm terrified they're going to hurt you, and I don't know how to stop it." Daniel's expression softened. "I'm tougher than I look." "I know, but I—" She stopped, the words catching. "I care about you. More than I planned to. And the thought of watching people be cruel to you makes me want to cancel the whole thing." "Hey." He covered her hands with his. "I've survived worse than some rich people's opinions. I'll survive this too. Promise?" "Promise." They stood there for a moment, close enough that Sophia could count his heartbeats. Then Chloe's voice cut through the moment. "Wow, you guys look so fancy." They stepped apart. Chloe was standing in the doorway in her pajamas, grinning like she'd discovered something wonderful. "You look like a princess and a prince," she announced. "Can I take a picture?" She grabbed Sophia's phone and made them pose together. Daniel's arm around Sophia's waist felt natural now, his hand resting at the small of her back like it belonged there. Sophia leaned into him without thinking about it, her head nearly touching his shoulder. "Perfect." Chloe showed them the photo. "You should frame this one." Looking at the image, Sophia felt something shift. They looked like a couple, a real couple. Not two people performing a role, but two people who actually fit together. "We need to go," she said, her voice not quite steady. The gala was exactly as overwhelming as Sophia had predicted. The ballroom at the plaza glittered with crystal and candlelight. Women in designer gowns air-kissed each other while their husbands discussed stock portfolios. Waiters circulated with champagne and canapes that cost more per bite than most people's meals. Sophia felt Daniel tense beside her as they entered. "Breathe," she murmured, "and if it gets too bad, we'll leave early." "Sophia, darling!" A woman in a silver dress descended on them, all teeth and perfume. Margaret Ashford, one of the foundation's biggest donors and biggest gossips. "And this must be your new husband. We've all been dying to meet him." "Margaret, this is Daniel Hayes. Daniel, Margaret Ashford." "Charmed," Margaret said, though her eyes were cataloging every detail of Daniel's appearance, filing it away for later dissection. "How did you two meet? Sophia's been so secretive about the whole thing." "Through work," Sophia said smoothly. "Daniel's company did some construction for one of our housing projects." "How romantic! A working man." Margaret's smile was razor sharp. "That must be quite a change for you, Daniel. From construction sites to galas." "Different environments, same principles," Daniel said evenly. "Both require showing up, doing the work, and hopefully not screwing it up too badly." Margaret blinked, not sure if she'd been insulted. Sophia bit back a smile. "Well, yes, I suppose so." Margaret's attention shifted to someone across the room. "Oh, there's the Vanderbilts. I simply must say hello. Lovely to meet you, Daniel." She swept away in a cloud of perfume and judgment. "That wasn't so bad," Daniel said. "That was just the opening act." He wasn't wrong. For the next hour, they were circulated through the room like prize exhibits. Most people were polite to Daniel's face and would probably be vicious behind his back. A few were openly condescending, One man actually asked Daniel if he'd ever been to a formal event before. A few, Daniel had said, his jaw tight. Funerals mostly. Turns out they have similar dress codes. Sophia had to physically restrain herself from throwing her drink at the man. By the time dinner was served, Daniel looked exhausted. They were seated at the head table, Sophia between Daniel and Richard, who kept shooting her concerned looks. "How's he holding up?" Richard whispered while Daniel was talking to the woman on his other side. "Better than I am," Sophia admitted. "I want to punch half these people. That's my job. You're supposed to charm them into writing checks." "I'm tired of charming them, Richard. I'm tired of pretending people like Margaret Ashford are good people just because they donate money. She's a snob and a gossip, and she's probably already spreading rumors about Daniel." "Probably. But she also wrote a check for $500,000 last year." "I don't care." Richard raised his eyebrows. "You don't care about $500,000 for the foundation?" "I care. But I care about him more." The words came out before Sophia could stop them. "And if that makes me a bad foundation director, then I'm a bad foundation director." "It doesn't make you bad. It makes you human." Richard smiled slightly. "About time, honestly. I was starting to think you were actually a robot." After dinner, there were speeches. Sophia had to give one, talking about the foundation's work over the past year, thanking the donors for their generosity. She'd given versions of this speech 100 times, could do it on autopilot. But halfway through, she caught sight of Daniel watching her from their table. He wasn't looking at her the way the other guests were, with polite interest or performative attention. He was really listening, his eyes on her face, a small smile playing at his lips. She lost her train of thought for a moment, had to glance down at her notes to remember where she was. When she returned to the table, Daniel leaned close. "You're good at this. The public speaking thing. Years of practice. It's more than that. You actually care about what you're saying. People can tell." "Can they?" "I can." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of handshakes and small talk. When they finally escaped to the car well after midnight, Sophia felt wrung out. "That was terrible," Daniel said, loosening his bow tie. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I survived, and I got to watch you in action. That was worth the price of admission." He paused. "Though I'm pretty sure I'll never wear this tux again." "You looked good in it." "Yeah?" "Yeah." They rode in silence for a while. Then Daniel said, "That guy who asked if I'd been to a formal event before? I wanted to tell him about my wedding, to my first wife. It was at her parents' house, nothing fancy, but she wore this dress her grandmother had worn, and we danced in the backyard while her dad played guitar. And it was—" He stopped. "It was perfect. More perfect than anything in that ballroom tonight." Sophia's chest tightened. "You loved her." "I did. Very much." "Do you still?" "I'll always love her. She gave me Chloe. She was a good person." He turned to look at Sophia. "But she's gone, and I can't live in the past forever. Where does that leave us?" "I don't know. Somewhere in the present, I guess. Trying to figure out what this is." When they got home, they found Chloe asleep on the couch, the babysitter dozing in a chair. Sophia paid the sitter while Daniel carried Chloe to her room. By the time Sophia joined him, he'd already tucked her in. "She waited up as long as she could," Daniel said quietly. "Wanted to hear about the party. We'll tell her tomorrow." They stood there for a moment, watching Chloe sleep. Her stuffed elephant was tucked under one arm, her face peaceful in the dim light from the hallway. "She's the best thing I ever did," Daniel said. "The only thing I know for sure I got right. She's pretty great. She loves you, you know, like really loves you. Not just because you're nice to her or because you buy her things. She loves you." Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. "I love her too." "I know." Daniel's voice was soft. "That's what scares me." "Why?" "Because we have an expiration date, Sophia. Because in 18 months, you're going to leave and Chloe's going to lose someone she loves. Again." He finally looked at her. "And I don't know how to protect her from that." "Maybe—" Sophia stopped, the words too dangerous to say out loud. "Maybe what?" "Maybe we don't have to have an expiration date." The silence was deafening. Daniel stared at her like she'd spoken a different language. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe the contract doesn't have to define us. Maybe we can—" She struggled to find the words. Maybe we can choose something different. You want to stay married? For real? I don't know. Maybe. I haven't thought it through. Sophia, I know it's crazy. I know we started this as a transaction, and it's only been a few months, and there are 1,000 reasons why it's a bad idea. But I can't stop thinking about what happens when the 2 years are up, and it makes me feel sick. The thought of leaving, of not seeing Chloe every day, of not... She stopped, her voice breaking. Of not having this. Daniel didn't say anything for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful. We should talk about this when we're not exhausted and emotional. Right, of course. You're right. But Sophia? He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. For what it's worth, I've been thinking the same thing. Her breath caught. You have? Yeah, I have. They stood in Chloe's doorway, close enough to touch, but not touching. Two people on the edge of something that could either save them or destroy them both. The next morning, Sophia woke to the sound of laughter from the kitchen. She found Daniel making pancakes, actual edible pancakes this time, while Chloe sat at the counter telling him about a dream she'd had involving Emma, the fish tank, and a dragon. Morning, Daniel said when he saw her. His eyes searched her face, clearly wondering if last night's conversation had been real or if she'd changed her mind in the daylight. She hadn't. Morning, she said back, and something passed between them. An understanding. A promise to talk about it later, when Chloe wasn't there. Sophia! Chloe bounced in her seat. Was the party amazing? Did you dance? Did anyone ask about me? Several people asked about you, actually, and yes, we danced, once. This was a lie. They hadn't danced at all. But Chloe looked so delighted by the idea that Sophia couldn't bring herself to admit the truth. I wish I could have seen it. Dancing is so romantic. It's just moving to music, Daniel said, flipping a pancake. No, it's romantic, like in movies. People fall in love while dancing. Sophia caught Daniel's eye. He was trying not to smile. Sometimes they do, Sophia said carefully. After breakfast, while Daniel was in the shower and Chloe was watching cartoons, Sophia's phone rang. Her cousin Vincent. She almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Vincent, Sophia, how was the gala? Fine. Why are you calling? Can I call my favorite cousin to check in? We're not close, Vincent, and I'm your only cousin. What do you want? A pause. Then, I heard you brought your husband to the gala. People are talking. People always talk. They're saying it's odd that you kept the whole relationship secret, then suddenly you're married, that he's, well, not exactly your usual type. Sophia's grip tightened on the phone. My personal life is none of your business. It is when it affects the foundation. Some of the board members are concerned. About what exactly? About whether this marriage is legitimate. About whether you're trying to circumvent grandfather's will through fraud. Ice flooded Sophia's veins. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious concern. The will was very clear about the marriage requirement. If there's any question about the legitimacy, my marriage is completely legal. Legal, yes. But is it real? That's the question people are asking. Who's asking, Vincent? You? I'm just relaying what I've heard. No, you're fishing. You're looking for ammunition to challenge my position, and you're not going to find it. We'll see. Enjoy your Sunday, Sophia. He hung up before she could respond. Sophia stood there, phone in hand, feeling the careful happiness of the morning crack apart. She'd known this was coming, had known Vincent wouldn't just accept losing the inheritance, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. The contract that was supposed to protect everything might destroy it instead. Daniel found her 20 minutes later, still standing in the same spot, staring at her phone like it might bite her. Hey, you okay? Sophia looked up, and whatever he saw on her face made him close the kitchen door so Chloe wouldn't hear. What happened? Vincent called. He's going to challenge the marriage. The words came out flat, emotionless. Sophia had spent years perfecting that tone, the one that made her sound unaffected when she was actually falling apart. He's telling the board it's fake, that we're committing fraud. Daniel went very still. Can he do that? He can try. The will requires the marriage to be legitimate. If he can prove we married purely for the inheritance, which we did. Which we did, Sophia echoed. Then everything goes to him. The foundation, the money, all of it. So what do we do? Sophia laughed, a bitter sound. I don't know. Richard will have ideas, legal strategies. But Daniel, if this goes to court, they'll dig into everything, our whole relationship. They'll interview people, look at timelines, try to prove we barely knew each other before the wedding. Because we didn't. I know. She pressed her palms against her eyes. I knew this was a risk. I knew Vincent wouldn't go down without a fight. I thought we'd have more time before he made his move. Daniel was quiet for a moment, then, what if we tell the truth? What? What if we just admit it started as an arrangement? Tell them yes, we got married for practical reasons, but it became real? He moved closer. Because it did become real, Sophia. Whatever we are now, it's not fake. You think that matters? You think the board will care about our feelings when there are billions of dollars at stake? I think the board might care that you've dedicated 8 years of your life to the foundation, that you've grown it into something that actually helps people, that you're not the greedy opportunist Vincent wants them to believe you are. You have a lot of faith in people's better nature. Yeah, well, someone recently taught me that showing up and being honest is sometimes enough. He gave her a small smile. Wonder who that was. Despite everything, Sophia felt something warm in her chest. We're going to lose. Maybe, but we'll lose honestly. That has to count for something. Before Sophia could respond, Chloe pushed open the kitchen door. Are you guys fighting? You look serious. Not fighting, Daniel said quickly. Just talking about grown-up stuff. Boring grown-up stuff or interesting grown-up stuff? Very boring, Sophia managed. The most boring. Chloe didn't look convinced, but she accepted it. Can we go to the park? Emma's going to be there with her mom. Daniel looked at Sophia. She nodded. They needed to act normal, whatever that meant anymore. At the park, Sophia sat on a bench while Daniel pushed Chloe on the swings. Emma's mother, a woman named Jennifer with kind eyes and yoga pants, sat down beside her. Your daughter talks about you constantly, Jennifer said. According to Emma, Chloe thinks you hung the moon. She's a sweet kid. Emma says Chloe's new stepmom is the best stepmom in the world. High praise from a 7-year-old. Jennifer smiled. It's nice, seeing a blended family work. My ex-husband's new wife and I can barely be in the same room. Sophia felt like a fraud. We're still figuring things out. Aren't we all? Jennifer watched the girls playing. Can I ask you something? And feel free to tell me to mind my own business. Okay. How did you do it? The transition. Emma says Chloe was nervous about school starting, about having a new family, but she seems so happy now, so adjusted. Sophia thought about lying, about giving some generic answer about patience and communication. Instead, she found herself being honest. I didn't do anything special. I just showed up every day, even when I had no idea what I was doing, even when I was terrified of screwing it up. She watched Chloe laugh at something Daniel said. I think kids can tell when you're trying, when you actually care. The rest is just fumbling through and hoping you don't break anything important. Jennifer laughed. That's the most honest parenting advice I've ever heard. Is it advice if I'm making it up as I go? The best kind, probably. When they left the park, Chloe held both their hands, swinging between them like a bridge. Other families passed them, and Sophia wondered what they saw. A normal family? Or could they tell it was all built on a contract and desperation? That evening, after Chloe was in bed, Sophia called Richard. He answered on the first ring, which meant he'd been expecting this. Vincent called you too, Sophia said. 3 hours ago, he's officially filing a challenge with the board. Emergency meeting scheduled for Friday. That's in 5 days. I know, he's moving fast, probably hoping we won't have time to mount a proper defense. Sophia sank onto the couch. Daniel appeared with 2 glasses of wine, handed her one, and sat close enough that their knees touched. She didn't move away. What's our strategy? She asked Richard. Honesty, like we discussed. We acknowledge the marriage started as a business arrangement, but argue it evolved into a genuine relationship. We present evidence of your life together. Show the board that regardless of how it started, you're a real family now. What kind of evidence? Photos. Witnesses who can speak to your relationship. Testimony from people who've seen you together. Richard paused. It would help if Daniel was willing to speak at the meeting. His perspective carries weight. Sophia looked at Daniel. He nodded without hesitation. I'll do it, he said. Thank you. Richard's voice was warm. One more thing, Sophia. Vincent's lawyers are going to argue that you've always been emotionally incapable of a real relationship. They'll use your history, the failed relationships, the focus on work, your parents' statements about your character. My parents are dead. I know, but they gave interviews over the years, society pieces. There's a particularly damaging one from Vanity Fair where your mother said you were married to your work and not the maternal type. Sophia's hand tightened on the wine glass. Of course there is. After she hung up, Daniel took the glass from her hand before she could break it. Your mother said that? In a magazine? She said worse to my face. This is just the published version. That's... Daniel stopped, clearly trying to find a word that wasn't a curse. That's horrible. That was my childhood. Everything I did was scrutinized, criticized, found wanting. Is it any wonder I learned to keep people at a distance? No, it's not. He set both glasses on the coffee table. But she was wrong. You know that, right? Do I? Sophia, you're great with Chloe. You remember the things she tells you. You show up to her school events. You sit on the floor and color with her even though it kills your back and ruins your expensive clothes. He paused, searching for words. You're exactly the maternal type. You just never had a chance to figure that out before. Sophia felt tears burning. What if Vincent's right? What if the board looks at us and sees exactly what he wants them to see? A fake marriage. A desperate grab for money. Then they're not looking hard enough. Daniel pulled her closer. Because what I see is someone who's terrified of losing the foundation she built. Someone who took a risk on a stranger and his sick kid. Someone who's been showing up every day, even though she's scared. That's not fake, Sophia. That's real. She let herself lean against him, his arms solid around her shoulders. I don't know how to fight this. Yeah, you do. You've been fighting your whole life. This is just another battle. I'm tired of fighting. I know, but you're not alone this time. They sat like that for a long time, Sophia's head on Daniel's shoulder, his hand tracing absent patterns on her arm. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos, indifferent to their crisis. Tell me something, Sophia said quietly. If we lose, if Vincent gets the foundation and we don't need the marriage anymore, what happens to us? Daniel's hand stilled. What do you want to happen? I asked you first. Cheating. But his voice was soft. I want us to stay together, not because of a contract, not because of the foundation, just because we want to. Even though we started this whole thing as a lie, especially because we started as a lie. We know the worst about each other. We know exactly how this started and why, and we're still here. He shifted so he could see her face. I'm falling in love with you, Sophia. Maybe I already have, and it scares the hell out of me because I swore I'd never let myself get here again. But here I am anyway. Sophia's breath caught. Daniel? You don't have to say it back. I'm not asking for anything. I needed you to know. Before Friday, before whatever happens, happens. I needed you to know that this is real for me. She kissed him. Didn't think about it, didn't plan it, just closed the distance between them and kissed him like she'd been wanting to for weeks. He made a surprised sound against her mouth, then kissed her back, his hand coming up to cup her face. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Sophia rested her forehead against his. I love you too, she whispered. I'm terrified, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm probably going to screw this up somehow. But I love you. Yeah? Yeah. He kissed her again, slower this time, like they had all the time in the world instead of 5 days before everything potentially fell apart. The next morning, Sophia woke up in her own bed. They still maintained separate rooms, some habits harder to break than others. But Daniel was the first thing she thought about. The kiss. The confession. The feeling of his hands on her face like she was something precious. She found him in the kitchen, making coffee, looking rumpled and domestic and perfect. When he saw her, he smiled, and it transformed his whole face. Morning. Morning. She felt suddenly shy, which was ridiculous. They were married. They'd just confessed their feelings. But somehow morning after awkwardness had found them anyway. About last night, Daniel started. If you're about to say it was a mistake, I was going to say it was overdue. And we should probably do it again, after Chloe goes to school. Heat flooded through Sophia. Oh. But first coffee, and possibly a conversation about what this means. Because I've never been good at casual, and I'm pretty sure you aren't either. They didn't get to have that conversation. Chloe wandered in, took one look at them, and grinned. You guys look different. Different how? Sophia asked. I don't know. Happier? You're smiling at each other like people do in movies before they kiss. Daniel choked on his coffee. Sophia felt her face heat. We're just having a good morning, she managed. Uh-huh. Chloe poured herself cereal with the knowing look of someone much older than 7. That's what they all say. After school drop-off, Daniel and Sophia finally had their conversation, in the car, because apparently that had become their safe space for difficult discussions. I want this to work, Sophia said, not just for the foundation, for us, but I don't know how to be in a relationship. My track record is terrible. Mine isn't great either. I was married for 3 years, and half that time I was so focused on work that I barely saw my wife. I don't want to make the same mistakes. So what do? We try. We mess up. We communicate instead of shutting down. We remember that we're on the same team. He reached for her hand. And we stop pretending this is temporary. The 2-year contract is garbage. We both know it. Let's rip it up and build something real. The contract is our protection. If Vincent challenges us, then we face it together, as a real couple, not as 2 people performing for the cameras. Daniel squeezed her hand. I'm all in, Sophia. Are you? She thought about the foundation, the inheritance, everything she'd worked for. Then she thought about Chloe's laugh and Sunday morning pancakes, and the way Daniel looked at her like she was capable of more than she'd ever believed. I'm in, she said. They spent the next 3 days preparing for the board meeting like generals planning for war. Richard compiled evidence, photos, testimonies, receipts from family activities. Daniel practiced his statement until he could deliver it without looking at notes. Sophia went through every argument Vincent might make and prepared counter-arguments. On Thursday night, Chloe asked why everyone was so stressed. Just work stuff, Sophia said, which was technically true. Is it bad work stuff? Potentially, but we're handling it. Chloe was quiet for a moment, then, Are you and Daddy going to get divorced? The question hit like a freight train. Sophia set down the spoon she'd been using to stir pasta sauce. What? No. Why would you think that? Because you both look worried all the time. And Jessica's parents looked worried all the time before they got divorced. And now her dad lives in a different house, and she only sees him on weekends. Daniel appeared in the kitchen doorway. He'd clearly heard. Come here, sweetheart. He pulled Chloe into his arms. Sophia and I are not getting divorced. We're dealing with some complicated stuff, but we're dealing with it together, as a family. Promise? Promise. He looked at Sophia over Chloe's head. Right? Right, Sophia agreed, her throat tight. We're not going anywhere. After Chloe went to bed, they stood in the hallway, the weight of that promise hanging between them. We can't lose, Sophia said quietly. Not just because of the foundation. We can't put her through that. Watching us fall apart. We won't. Whatever happens tomorrow, we handle it, together. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. in the foundation's main conference room. Sophia arrived early, Daniel beside her, both dressed like they were going to war, which, in a sense, they were. The board members filed in, 12 people who held the foundation's fate in their hands. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked skeptical. Margaret Ashford looked like she was settling in for entertaining drama. Vincent arrived last, flanked by 2 lawyers looking smug. He took a seat across from Sophia and smiled. Cousin, looking tense. Vincent, looking predictable. Richard called the meeting to order. We're here to address Vincent Sterling's challenge to Sophia Sterling's marriage and, by extension, her control of the Sterling Foundation. Mr. Sterling, you have the floor. Vincent stood, every inch the confident air. Thank you, Richard. I'll be brief. My grandfather's will was clear. Sophia needed to be married to maintain control of the foundation. She is technically married, yes, but to a man she barely knew, in a ceremony that happened suspiciously close to her deadline. A man who was, conveniently, in desperate financial straits that Sophia could solve. He paused for effect. I'm not here to attack my cousin's character. I'm here to protect our grandfather's legacy. He wanted Sophia to have a real marriage, a real family, not a business transaction dressed up as a wedding. Murmurs around the table. Sophia kept her face neutral. Do you have evidence of fraud? Richard asked. I have a timeline that speaks for itself. They met in April, married in May. That's barely a month. Sophia paid for his daughter's surgery the day after the wedding. He moved into her penthouse immediately. It's not a marriage. It's a contractual arrangement. People have married quickly before, Richard countered. That doesn't make it fraudulent. True, but combined with everything else? Sophia's history of failed relationships, her mother's public statements about her inability to form lasting bonds, the convenient timing, the financial transaction, it forms a picture of someone desperate to meet a deadline, not someone in love. The words stung because they were partially true. Sophia glanced at Daniel. He was gripping the armrest of his chair hard enough that his knuckles were white. Mr. Sterling, one of the board members said, what exactly are you proposing? That the board vote to remove Sophia from her position and transfer control of the foundation to me as the next eligible heir. She's violated the spirit of our grandfather's will, if not the letter. The letter is what matters legally, Richard said. Perhaps, but this board has the power to vote on leadership. I'm asking them to exercise that power. Richard stood. Before any vote, I'd like the board to hear from Sophia and Daniel Hayes. I think their testimony will paint a different picture than the one Vincent has presented. The chairman nodded. Mrs. Hayes, you have the floor. Sophia stood, her heart pounding. She'd given hundreds of speeches. This shouldn't be different, except it was. This time, she wasn't performing. She was fighting for everything that mattered. Vincent is right about one thing, she began. My marriage to Daniel started as a practical arrangement. I needed to be married. He needed money for his daughter's surgery. We made a deal. Gasps around the table. Vincent looked triumphant. Richard looked slightly ill, though they'd agreed on this strategy. But, Sophia continued, that's not where the story ends. Yes, we married quickly. Yes, there was a financial transaction. But what happened after, that was real. Daniel and I built a life together, not because we had to, because we wanted to. His daughter Chloe became my daughter in every way that matters. We became a family, not overnight, not perfectly, but genuinely. She pulled out her phone, displayed photos on the screen behind her. This is Chloe's first day of school. Daniel and I walked her in together. This is Sunday pancakes in our kitchen, a tradition that started because we're both terrible cooks, but Chloe wanted pancakes, so we figured it out together. This is the three of us at the park, at the museum, reading bedtime stories, living our lives. More photos cycled through. Margaret Ashford was actually dabbing at her eyes. Vincent says I'm incapable of forming lasting bonds. Maybe he's right. Maybe I was. My childhood taught me that love was conditional, that affection was something you earned through achievement, not something freely given. So yes, I focused on work, on the foundation, because at least there, I knew the rules. Do good work, help people, achieve results. Simple. She paused, looking at Daniel. And then I met someone who changed those rules. Someone who showed me that love isn't about achievement, it's about showing up, being present, trying your best even when you're terrified of failing. Daniel taught me that, and so did Chloe. This is very touching, Vincent interrupted. But it doesn't change the facts. You married him for money. I married him for the foundation, Sophia corrected, which isn't the same thing. I married him because losing this foundation, losing the work we do, was unthinkable. We housed 487 families last year, Vincent. We fed thousands. We provided medical care to children who couldn't afford it, children like Chloe. Her voice hardened. So yes, I was willing to enter into a marriage arrangement to protect that work. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm proud of it. But the marriage itself is real. Ask Daniel. He's sitting right there. Ask him if our relationship is fake. All eyes turned to Daniel. He stood slowly, and Sophia saw him take a breath, centering himself. 3 months ago, I hated Sophia Sterling, he said bluntly. I thought she was everything wrong with rich people. Cold, manipulative, using money to solve problems that shouldn't be solved with money. I took her deal because I was desperate and my daughter was dying, but I hated her for offering it. Vincent looked pleased. Sophia's stomach dropped. But, Daniel continued. I was wrong. About everything. Sophia isn't cold. She's careful. She's been hurt enough times that she built walls to protect herself, and I can't blame her for that. I did the same thing after my first wife died. And the marriage deal? Yeah, it was manipulative. It was also the only way she could think of to save something that matters to her more than the money ever did. He walked to stand beside Sophia. She didn't have to be good to my daughter. The contract didn't require it. All she had to do was show up to a few public events, maintain appearances. Instead, she learned Chloe's favorite foods. She goes to parent-teacher conferences. She sits with her when she has nightmares. She loves my daughter like she's her own, and that's— His voice cracked. That's not something you can fake. So you're saying the marriage is real? The chairman asked. I'm saying it became real. Maybe it started as a transaction, but it's not that anymore. I love my wife. She loves me. We love our daughter. And if this board can't see that, if they're going to let Vincent dismantle everything Sophia's built because they're hung up on how we started instead of where we ended up, then they're making a mistake. Silence. Then Margaret Ashford, of all people, spoke up. I've known Sophia since she was a child. I knew her parents, her grandfather, and I'll tell you something. I've never seen her as happy as she was at that gala last week. When she looked at Daniel, when she talked about her stepdaughter, that wasn't performance. I've seen Sophia perform for years. This was different. Margaret, Vincent started. I'm not finished. You want to talk about protecting your grandfather's legacy? His legacy is that foundation. And nobody has protected it better than Sophia. She's grown it, improved it, turned it into something that actually helps people instead of just making wealthy donors feel good about themselves. If we remove her because she found an unconventional way to meet an unreasonable requirement, we're fools. Other board members nodded. Vincent's lawyers whispered urgently to him. The chairman cleared his throat. I think we've heard enough testimony. The question before us is whether Sophia Sterling has violated the terms of her grandfather's will and should be removed from leadership. All in favor of removal? Sophia held her breath. Daniel's hand found hers under the table. 3 hands went up. Vincent's supporters. Not enough. All opposed? 9 hands, including Margaret Ashford's. The motion fails. Sophia Sterling retains control of the foundation. The chairman looked at Vincent. This matter is closed. Vincent's face went red. This is closed, the chairman repeated firmly, unless you'd like to challenge the vote in court, which I strongly advise against. This board has spoken. After the meeting, in the elevator going down, Sophia started shaking. Daniel pulled her into his arms, and she buried her face against his chest. We won, he said quietly. It's over. I can't believe that worked. I can. You were amazing up there. We were amazing. She pulled back to look at him. What you said about loving me, did you mean it? Every word. She kissed him right there in the elevator, not caring who might see. They picked up Chloe from school together, and she knew immediately that something had changed. You're both smiling, she observed, like really smiling. Did something good happen? Something very good, Sophia said. But we'll tell you about it at home. At the penthouse, they sat Chloe down and tried to figure out how to explain board meetings and inheritance clauses to a 7-year-old. Remember how Daddy and I got married kind of fast? Sophia began. Yeah, because when you know, you know. Right. Well, some people thought maybe we got married too fast. They thought maybe it wasn't real. Chloe frowned. That's dumb. Of course it's real. You live together. You love each other. We do, Daniel confirmed. But we had to prove it to some important people today. And we did. So everything's okay now? Everything's okay. Chloe thought about this. Then, does this mean you're going to kiss more? Because Jessica says her mom and stepdad kiss all the time, and it's gross. Sophia and Daniel looked at each other. Maybe a little more, Sophia admitted, as long as it's not at breakfast. That would be weird. That night, after Chloe was asleep, Sophia and Daniel stood on the balcony overlooking the city, the same spot where they'd stood months ago, strangers bound by a contract. Everything looked the same. Everything was different. I'm going to rip up the contract, Sophia said. The original one. It doesn't apply anymore. What replaces it? Nothing. We don't need a contract. We just need— She paused. This. Us. Whatever we're building. No expiration date? No expiration date. Daniel pulled her close. I can live with that. Below them, the city glittered with possibility. Sophia thought about her grandfather's will, about the foundation, about all the practical reasons that had brought her to this moment. And then she thought about Chloe's laugh and Daniel's hand in hers and Sunday morning pancakes, and realized the practical reasons didn't matter anymore. They'd started as a transaction, a desperate deal between two people who needed each other for all the wrong reasons. But somehow, impossibly, they'd become exactly what Sophia's grandfather had wanted all along: a family. The contract sat on Sophia's desk for 3 days before she actually destroyed it. Not because she was having second thoughts, she wasn't, but because something about the finality felt enormous. This piece of paper had defined her life for months. It had been her safety net, her justification, her protection against the vulnerability of actually caring about someone. Now it was just paper. Daniel found her staring at it on a Wednesday afternoon. Chloe at a playdate with Emma, the apartment quiet in a way it rarely was anymore. You haven't done it yet, he observed, leaning against the doorframe of her office. I will. When? When I'm ready. He came to stand beside her, looking down at the contract. What's holding you back? Sophia touched the edge of the document, tracing the signature she'd made 6 months ago. That version of herself felt like a stranger now. If we don't have this, what do we have? Each other? Isn't that better? What if it's not enough? What if we wake up 6 months from now and realize we only stayed together because we were afraid of being alone? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he picked up the contract, walked to the fireplace, and before Sophia could stop him, set it on fire. They didn't use the fireplace. It was decorative, gas-powered, more for ambiance than actual warmth. But the flames caught anyway, turning legal clauses and financial terms into ash. There, he said. Now, we don't have a choice. We're stuck figuring it out the hard way. You just destroyed a legal document. I destroyed a piece of paper that was keeping you scared. There's a difference. He pulled her close. We're going to mess this up sometimes, Sophia. We're going to have fights and bad days and moments where we wonder what the hell we're doing. But that's real marriage, not whatever that contract was pretending to be. She watched the last of the paper curl and blacken. I've never been good at real. Yeah, you have. You just convinced yourself you weren't. He kissed her forehead. Besides, you've got me. And Chloe, we're excellent at keeping you honest. The shift from contractual obligation to actual relationship was subtler than Sophia expected. They still had their separate bedrooms. Daniel said Chloe needed time to adjust to the idea of them as a real couple before things changed too obviously. They still had their weekly therapy sessions, though now Sophia found herself talking more about building a future than protecting herself from pain. The foundation thrived. With Vincent's challenge defeated, Sophia threw herself into expansion plans. A new housing initiative, partnerships with schools, medical programs for uninsured children. Daniel's construction company took on some of the building projects, and watching him work, seeing him transform empty lots into homes for families who needed them, made Sophia fall in love with him all over again. But it wasn't all smooth. Real relationships never were. The first major fight happened 2 months after the board meeting. Sophia came home late from a fundraiser, exhausted and slightly drunk on champagne and success. She'd secured commitments for over $2 million in new donations. She wanted to celebrate. Instead, she found Daniel on the couch, arms crossed, jaw tight. Where were you? The fundraiser. I told you about it this morning. You said you'd be home by 9. It's midnight. The event ran long. People wanted to talk. You couldn't text? Sophia set down her bag, irritation prickling. I'm not a teenager with a curfew, Daniel. No, you're a wife with a family who worries when you disappear for 3 extra hours. I was working. You're always working. The accusation stung because it was partially true. Even though Sophia had been making an effort to be home more, old habits died hard. The foundation was comfortable, safe. She knew how to be good at running it. Being good at marriage was still terrifying and new. That's not fair, isn't it? Daniel stood. You missed Chloe's school concert last week because of a conference call. You forgot about parent-teacher night until I reminded you. And tonight, you promised you'd be home to help her with her science project. Guilt punched through Sophia's chest. I forgot about the project. Yeah, you did. And when she asked where you were, I didn't know what to tell her. You could have texted me. I did. 3 times. You didn't answer. Sophia pulled out her phone. 3 missed messages from Daniel. 2 from Chloe. The second one just saying, "Never mind, Daddy's helping me." I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix the pattern, Sophia. You're still treating the foundation like it's more important than us. It's not more important, but it is important. Those donations I secured tonight will house 15 families. That matters. So does being here for your daughter.
She's not actually my daughter, though, is she? The words came out before Sophia could stop them, sharp and defensive, and immediately regretted. Daniel's face went cold. What did you just say? I didn't mean, no, you did. You meant it, or you wouldn't have said it. His voice was flat, distant. After everything. After 6 months of Chloe calling you mom. After you told the board she was yours. You still see her as mine, not ours. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Sophia sank onto the couch, the champagne buzz evaporating into cold clarity. I meant that I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to balance being good at my job and being good at being a parent. My mother was terrible at both. My father was absent. I don't have a model for this. So make one. Stop using your childhood as an excuse and actually try. I am trying. Not hard enough, not when it matters. Daniel moved toward the hallway. I'm going to bed. Chloe's project is on the dining table if you want to look at it. She got an A-. Would have been an A if we'd had the materials you promised to pick up. He left before Sophia could respond. She sat alone in the dark, staring at her phone, the weight of her failure pressing down. She'd spent months learning to be present, to show up, to love these people who'd somehow become her whole world. And in one night, she'd proven that old patterns ran deeper than new promises. The science project sat on the dining table, a model of the solar system made from foam balls and wire hangers. Chloe's careful handwriting labeled each planet. In the corner, a note. Mom helped me with the sun, Dad helped with everything else. Sophia picked up the note, her throat tight. She'd helped with one thing, painting a foam ball yellow, before getting distracted by a phone call. Daniel had done the rest. She found him in his bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, still dressed. I'm sorry, she said from the doorway. You said that already. I mean it, though. I screwed up. I got so focused on the fundraiser that I forgot about what matters more. Do you actually believe that? Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear? Sophia came into the room, sat beside him. I believe it, but I also believe I'm going to keep screwing up. Because this is new for me and scary, and my default setting when I'm scared is to throw myself into work. That doesn't make it right. It just makes it honest. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. I know I'm being unfair. I know the foundation is important. But Sophia, when you disappear into work like that, it feels like you're disappearing from us, like you're looking for an exit. I'm not. Then prove it. Not by being perfect. I don't expect perfect. Just by being here. Consistently. Even when it's hard. I can do that. Can you? Because this isn't the first time. And if it keeps happening, it won't. She took his hand. I'll do better. I'll set boundaries at work. I'll put Chloe's stuff in my calendar so I don't forget. I'll actually answer my phone when you text. Those are logistics. I need more than that. What do you need? He looked at her, really looked, and she saw the vulnerability beneath his anger. I need to know you're all in, that you're not going to wake up one day and realize the foundation is easier than being a wife and mother and just leave. Because I've already lost one wife, Sophia. I can't. His voice cracked. I can't do that again. Sophia's heart broke. She'd been so focused on her own fears that she hadn't considered his. I'm not going anywhere. You keep saying that because I keep meaning it. She shifted to face him fully. Daniel, I'm terrified of failing at this, of being the kind of mother my mother was, of proving everyone right who said I was too cold, too selfish, too broken. But leaving? That's not even on the table. Not anymore. You and Chloe, you're it for me. This is my family, and I'm going to keep showing up, even when I'm bad at it, even when I mess up, because that's what you do for people you love. He pulled her into his arms, and she felt him shaking slightly. I'm sorry, too, for expecting you to be perfect at this when I'm not perfect either. We're a mess. Yeah,
but we're a mess together. They sat like that for a while, holding each other in the dark, two imperfect people trying to build something that lasted. The next morning, Sophia woke up early and made breakfast. Actual breakfast, not just coffee and whatever Chloe could grab on the way out the door. Pancakes, eggs, bacon. The bacon was slightly burnt and the eggs were overcooked, but when Chloe came into the kitchen and saw the spread, her face lit up. "Did you make this?" "I attempted to make this. Results may vary." Chloe tried the pancakes, made a face, then smiled. "They're perfect." "They're terrible, but you made them. That makes them perfect." She took another bite, chewing determinedly. "I missed you last night." "I know. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I should have been here." "Daddy said you were doing important work." "I was. But you're more important. I should have remembered that." Chloe thought about this. Can both things be important? Like, your work helps people, but we're your family. Can't they both matter? Out of the mouths of 7-year-olds. Yes, they can both matter. I just need to get better at balancing them. My teacher says balance is hard. She says even she forgets sometimes and stays at school too late because she's grading papers. Chloe poked at her eggs. Maybe you're like her. You just care a lot about your job. I do care about my job, but I care about you more. I know. Chloe said it simply, like it was obvious. You're here now. That's what counts. Daniel appeared in the doorway, rumpled from sleep, and stopped when he saw them. You cooked. I cooked. Should I be concerned? Definitely. But eat anyway. It's the thought that counts. Over burnt bacon and overcooked eggs, they were a family. Imperfect and messy and real. 3 months later, Sophia stood in Chloe's classroom for the annual spring concert, phone off, work forgotten, watching her daughter, their daughter, sing a song about seasons with 20 other second graders. Chloe had a solo line. She'd been practicing for weeks, nervous she'd forget the words. She didn't forget. Her voice rang out clear and slightly off-key, and Sophia felt tears streaming down her face. Daniel's hand found hers. You okay? I'm watching my daughter sing. How could I not be okay? After the concert, Chloe ran to them, flushed and excited. Did you hear me? Did I do good? You did amazing, Sophia said, pulling her into a hug. You both came together. Emma's dad didn't come because he had to work. Work can wait, Sophia said, and meant it. That night, after Chloe was asleep, Sophia found Daniel in the kitchen cleaning up from dinner. I've been thinking, she said. Dangerous. I want to adopt her, officially. Make her legally mine, not just emotionally. Daniel's hands stilled in the soapy water. Are you serious? Completely. I know I'm already her stepmother, but I want it to be official. I want her to be mine on paper the same way she is in my heart. He turned to face her, and his eyes were wet. She'd love that. Would you? Sophia, I'd love nothing more than for Chloe to officially have the mother she's already got. He pulled her close, soap suds and all. When do you want to tell her? Soon, but there's something else first. What? She took a breath. I want to have another baby. With you. I want Chloe to have a sibling. I want us to build this family bigger. Daniel looked stunned. You... Really? You want kids? I want your kid. Our kid. I spent 30 years convinced I'd be a terrible mother, but Chloe taught me I was wrong. You taught me I was wrong. So yes, I want another baby. If you do. He kissed her, deep and thorough, tasting like forever. Yes. Absolutely yes. They told Chloe about the adoption a week later, sitting her down with the seriousness of a presidential address. So you know how I'm your stepmom? Sophia began. Yeah. Well, I want to make it even more official. I want to adopt you. That means you'd be my daughter legally, not just in our hearts. Chloe's eyes went wide. Like, actually for real? On paper and everything? On paper and everything. Would I get to change my name? If you want to, you could be Chloe Hayes Sterling, or Chloe Sterling Hayes, or just keep Hayes, whatever you want. Can I think about it? Of course. Chloe was quiet for a moment, her face scrunched in concentration. Then, if you adopt me, does that mean you can't leave? Like, you'd be stuck being my mom forever? Sophia's throat went tight. I'm already stuck being your mom forever. The adoption just makes it official.
Good. Chloe threw her arms around Sophia's waist. Because I don't want a mom who can leave. I want one who stays. Then you're in luck, because I'm not going anywhere.
The adoption process took 6 months. Background checks, home visits, interviews with social workers who asked invasive questions about their marriage and their family dynamics. But when the judge finally signed the papers, making Chloe officially Chloe Sterling Hayes, Sophia felt something shift, a sense of permanence she'd never felt before. They celebrated with ice cream and a movie marathon. Chloe insisted on watching every princess movie ever made, commentary included.
You know what's weird about these movies? She said during Cinderella. The princesses always need saving. But you didn't need saving, Mom. You saved yourself. Actually, I saved the foundation. Your dad saved me. Gross, that's romantic. But Chloe was smiling.
By the time they found out Sophia was pregnant 4 months later, they'd settled into something that felt less like a performance and more like life. Daniel's business was thriving. The foundation was expanding. Chloe was excelling in school. They had movie nights and Sunday pancakes and arguments about whose turn it was to do dishes. They had become, against all odds, normal. Telling Chloe about the baby was terrifying. Sophia worried about jealousy, about Chloe feeling replaced. Instead, Chloe squealed so loud the neighbors probably heard. I'm going to be a big sister? Really? A real one? A real one, Daniel confirmed. This is the best day of my life, even better than adoption day. Can we find out if it's a boy or girl? Can I help pick names? Can I teach them stuff? One question at a time, Sophia laughed. But yes to all of it. That night, Chloe insisted on talking to Sophia's still flat stomach. Hi, baby. I'm your big sister. I'm going to teach you everything I know. Which isn't that much yet because I'm only 8, but by the time you're born, I'll know way more. Mom and Dad are pretty cool, so you lucked out. Oh, and we have a really nice room for you. It's purple right now because it's mine, but we can paint it whatever color you want. Love you already. Watching her, Sophia felt overwhelmed by how much her life had changed. A year and a half ago, she'd been alone in this apartment, desperate and terrified, about to propose a fake marriage to a stranger. Now she was watching her daughter talk to her unborn child, her husband's arm around her shoulders, and nothing about it felt fake. The pregnancy was rough. Morning sickness that lasted all day, exhaustion that made working 12-hour days impossible. Sophia had to delegate more at the foundation, had to trust her team in ways that made her anxious. But Daniel was there, bringing her ginger tea when she was nauseous, taking over bedtime duties with Chloe when Sophia was too tired to stand, rubbing her feet while they watched terrible reality TV because it was the only thing that distracted her from feeling terrible. I'm enormous, Sophia complained at 7 months, staring at herself in the mirror. You're pregnant. I'm a whale. You're beautiful. You're contractually obligated to say that. We burned the contract, remember? I'm saying it because it's true. He came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her swollen middle. You're growing our kid in there. That's pretty incredible. Tell that to my back. My back is not impressed. The baby, a girl they had decided to name Grace, after Daniel's late wife, was born on a Tuesday morning in February. Sophia's water broke during a board meeting, which was fitting somehow. Even motherhood couldn't completely separate her from the foundation. The labor was long and painful, and nothing like the serene experience depicted in movies. Sophia yelled at Daniel, the nurses, and anyone who came within range. She demanded drugs, then refused them, then demanded them again. She was pretty sure she threatened to divorce Daniel at least 3 times. But when they finally placed Grace in her arms, tiny and wrinkled and screaming, Sophia fell in love instantly and completely. Hi, she whispered. I'm your mom. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I promise I'll figure it out. Daniel was crying. Chloe, who'd been allowed in after the birth, was crying. Even Sophia was crying, though she blamed hormones. She's perfect, Chloe whispered, touching Grace's tiny hand with one finger. She's so small. You were this small once, Daniel said. No way. I was never that small. They stayed in the hospital for 2 days. Friends visited, Emma and her mom, Richard, with an enormous teddy bear, even Margaret Ashford with a silver rattle that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. The foundation sent flowers. Daniel's construction crew sent a card signed by everyone. When they finally brought Grace home, Sophia felt the weight of responsibility settle over her. This tiny human was depending on her, trusting her to keep her safe, fed, loved. I'm terrified, she'd told Daniel at 3 a.m., rocking Grace while she screamed, "Me too. Second time around isn't any less scary." What if I'm bad at this? Then you'll figure it out. That's what you do. He took Grace, gave Sophia a break. Remember when you couldn't make pancakes? Now they're only slightly burnt. Progress. The first few months were brutal. Grace didn't sleep. Sophia was exhausted beyond reason. The foundation needed her attention for a crisis with a major donor. Chloe started acting out, clearly feeling the shift in attention. One particularly bad day, Sophia sat on the bathroom floor and cried while Grace screamed in her bassinet, and Chloe had a meltdown about homework, and Daniel was stuck at a job site with a concrete emergency. Her phone rang. It was her therapist, Dr. Martinez, for their weekly session that Sophia had completely forgotten about. "I can't talk right now," Sophia said. "Everything's falling apart." "Tell me what's happening." Through tears, Sophia explained: the crying baby, the acting out 8-year-old, the work crisis, the exhaustion, the feeling that she was failing at everything simultaneously. "You're not failing," Dr. Martinez said calmly. "You're managing an incredibly demanding period. Give me one thing that went right today." Nothing went right. "One thing, Sophia." She thought hard. "Chloe hugged me this morning, before the meltdown. She said she loved me." "That's not nothing. That's everything. She loves you, even when she's struggling. Grace will be fine, even though she's crying. The foundation will survive the crisis. You're doing better than you think." After the call, Sophia picked up Grace, who was still screaming, and just held her. Didn't try to fix it, didn't panic, just held her daughter and let her cry. Eventually, Grace settled, and then Chloe appeared in the doorway, looking guilty. "I'm sorry I yelled about homework. I'm sorry I wasn't more patient. Is it okay if I'm a little jealous of Grace, even though I love her?" "It's completely okay. Come here." Chloe climbed onto Sophia's lap, awkward now that Sophia was also holding a baby, but they made it work. They sat there together, a tangle of limbs and emotions. And Sophia thought about how far she'd come from the woman who'd sat in this apartment alone, convinced she was incapable of love. By the time Grace was 6 months old, they'd found a rhythm. Imperfect, chaotic, but theirs. Daniel had hired more crew for his company, allowing him more flexibility. Sophia had promoted someone at the foundation to handle day-to-day operations, freeing her to focus on strategy and family. Chloe had adjusted to being a big sister, though she still had moments of jealousy that they navigated together. One Saturday morning, Sophia woke to find the entire family in her bed. Chloe had crawled in sometime during the night. Daniel was there with Grace, who'd wanted to nurse at 5 a.m., and they'd all just fallen back asleep together. Looking at them, her husband, her daughters, this impossible family she'd accidentally built, Sophia felt something close to peace. The Foundation's 10th anniversary gala was the biggest event they'd ever planned. 500 guests, a live orchestra, enough donations to fund their programs for the next 2 years. Sophia had spent months planning it, but this time she'd also planned around her family. The event started at 7 so she could put Grace to bed first. Chloe got to come, wearing a dress she'd picked out herself. Daniel was by her side, comfortable now in these settings, no longer the outsider. During her speech, Sophia went off script. 10 years ago, my grandfather left me an impossible task: build something meaningful with the family fortune, or lose it. For a long time, I thought meaningful meant numbers. Families housed, meals provided, medical care funded. And yes, those things matter. We've helped thousands of people, and I'm proud of that work. She paused, finding Daniel in the crowd. He was holding Grace, Chloe beside him, both watching her. But my grandfather's will had another requirement, one I thought was arbitrary and controlling. He required me to be married, to have a family, and I fought that requirement, resented it, until I realized he wasn't trying to control me. He was trying to save me. Margaret Ashford was openly crying now. Even Richard looked emotional. This foundation has given me purpose, but my family has given me life. They've taught me that meaningful isn't just about what you accomplish. It's about who you love, who you show up for, who you choose every day, even when it's hard. She looked at Chloe and Grace, especially when it's hard. After the speech, Chloe ran to her. "That was beautiful, Mom." "You think so?" "Yeah, but also kind of cheesy. In a good way." Sophia laughed. "I can live with that. Later, on the balcony overlooking the city, their spot, where every important conversation seemed to happen, Daniel pulled her close. You did good tonight. We did good. None of this works without you. Yeah, but you're the one who had the courage to start it, to propose that insane contract. Worst idea I ever had. Best idea you ever had. Both can be true. He kissed her, soft and slow. I love you, Sophia Sterling Hayes. I love you too, Daniel Hayes Sterling, though we really need to figure out the name situation. We sound like a law firm. A very dysfunctional law firm. The best kind. Below them, the city hummed with life. The foundation's offices were dark now, but tomorrow they'd light up again. There would be more families to house, more children to feed, more work to do. But there would also be Sunday pancakes and bedtime stories and Grace's first steps and Chloe's school plays and all the small moments that made up a life. Sophia thought about the woman she'd been 18 months ago, desperate, alone, convinced that a contract could solve her problems without costing her heart. That woman had been wrong about so many things, but she'd been right about one thing. She'd needed a family. She just hadn't realized the family would need her back. That in saving the foundation, she'd save herself. That in proposing a fake marriage, she'd find real love. What are you thinking about? Daniel asked. How nothing went according to plan. Is that bad? No, it's perfect. She turned to face him. The plan was 2 years and done. Clean exit. No attachments. And instead, I got you. And Chloe. And Grace. And Sunday pancakes and school concerts and midnight feedings and all the messy, complicated, beautiful chaos that comes with actually living life instead of just managing it. Sounds terrible. The absolute worst. Want to do it for the next 50 years? Sophia pretended to think about it. I might need that in writing. No more contracts, just promises. Then yes. For the next 50 years. And then some. They stood there together, two people who'd started as strangers become partners and somehow transformed into something neither of them had planned for. A family built on honesty instead of perfection, on showing up instead of having all the answers, on loving each other through the mistakes instead of despite them. Inside, Grace started crying. Chloe called out that she'd get her. The sounds of their life together filtered through the open door, chaotic and imperfect and real. Sophia had spent 30 years believing that love was something you earned through achievement. The family was about meeting expectations, that she was fundamentally broken in ways that couldn't be fixed. Her family, this impossible, unplanned, contractually originated family, had taught her differently. They'd taught her that love wasn't about being perfect. It was about being present. That family wasn't about meeting expectations. It was about exceeding them in unexpected ways. That she wasn't broken. She'd just been waiting for the right people to show her how to be whole. The greatest love stories she'd learned didn't always start with passion or fate or love at first sight. Sometimes they started with desperation and a crazy proposal and two broken people agreeing to a fake marriage for all the wrong reasons. Sometimes they started with a contract that became a promise. Sometimes they started with strangers who became family. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, they never ended at all.